Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 641-660. Chapter 0641-0. Daliola, but hungry. Hearing Urusha's words of warning, many members of the Dark Guild present were all in awe. Undead disaster, this demon made a lot of trouble 10 years ago, and its reputation was so loud that no one dared to underestimate it. Seeing this, Hades snorted coldly and said, "Desert Scorpion, Thunder roar you 6 guilds, come with me." After speaking, he took the first step, led the demon heart, and stepped into the temple. The several dark guilds under his command looked at each other and followed suit. As for the other 9 guilds, they did not dare to step forward. At this moment, a purple poisonous dragon flew in the distance. No, that's not a poisonous dragon, but a poisonous snake. It's just this huge poisonous snake with fleshy wings growing out of its back. The long snake's letter swallowed and vomited, looking at the many dark wizards below with malicious intent. "Ha ha ha, I can hear the fear in your heart. Huh, what a bunch of garbage, you don't even dare to step into the temple." When the mocking sound came, everyone looked up and saw a man with short red hair standing on the back of the poisonous snake. The man was wearing a cloak, and with a flick, he jumped down. "Mr. Kebra, Poison Dragon Slayer." "The Corpse Soul Guild," the president shouted in surprise. "Sure enough, the 6 demon generals will also come." Incomparably dark magic power suddenly descended. Everyone looked back and saw 5 people walking behind them. The appearance of these 5 people is peculiar, exuding a powerful magical aura. A man with blonde hair and a long nose, a big man with a square face and curly hair, a woman with a smile on the corners of her mouth like an angel, a coquettish man sleeping cross-legged on a magic phaeton, and walking in the front, holding a skull wand, a big white head the leader on the back. "President Brian," someone exclaimed. In an instant, all the magicians knelt down and greeted them respectfully. The soul of the corpse, the naked bandaged man, the black unicorn, the red hood. The man known as Brian, like the king of the dead, took steps from the aisles that he had given up, stepping on the steps of the temple without stopping. "Your 9 guilds, come with me." "Yes, President Brian." The crowd complied. The remaining 9 guilds were all under the command of the 6 demon generals. Immediately, the group stepped into the temple, walked all the way, and finally came to a rotunda. The hall is not small and can accommodate more than a few hundred people. In the center of the hall, there is a round table with 4 welcome high chairs. In one of the chairs, Hades was already seated. And behind Hades, the 5 members of the 7 Purgatory family stood quietly. Seeing the arrival of the 6 demon generals, Hades glanced at it and said with a sneer, "I didn't expect you to absorb 9 guilds without knowing it." Brian ignored his sarcasm, walked over and sat down. Then, he looked at Urusha, who was standing beside the main seat, and said, "Have you not started yet? Where's your dream president?" "The president is not here," Urusha said calmly. "Please wait." "Let me wait." Brian's face sank. Before he could get angry, the many guilds behind him had already shouted angrily. "What are you kidding? You made Sir Brian wait." "That's right. You convened the major guilds in the dark magic world, but there is no etiquette. It can't be reassuring at all. Lord Brian, there's no need to attend this kind of bullshit meeting." The crowd was excited, and a group of people shouted, and if they disagreed, they would start fighting. Urusha's eyes turned cold, and she just wanted to teach this group of people a lesson. Just then, a chuckle came. I saw another entrance, and a man dressed in white stepped forward. Behind the man, followed by a white-haired woman. And with the man's stride, there was a snowstorm in the hall, and the snowflakes flew, forming a beautiful scenery. However, under this beautiful scenery, the wizards who had been shouting and shouting before found in horror that their bodies, starting from the legs, had turned into ice sculptures little by little. "No!" someone exclaimed, but the ice and snow buried his voice and stopped it abruptly. "I said don't make any noise, you're stubborn." Snow Saint Vivi Isho went straight to the main seat. Good morning. 3. I am one of the 4 great masters of the dream, the great master of ice and snow, the Snow Saint. At this meeting, I am attending on behalf of the dream. Not your president. Brian frowned again. Compared with him, Hades is obviously paying more attention. 3 people. Has the gate of Hades come? Of course. Shui Sheng said calmly, you can come out. You don't have to hide in front of me with your strength. Hee, how did you find me? Before anyone arrived, the voice was first recalled in the hall. The next moment, on the chair, a sound of freezing sounded. Ka ka ka. The magic of the ice raged and turned into a human-shaped ice sculpture, and then it gradually became colored and became a real person. I was taken aback by your dream title. The rise was extreme, extremely fast, and did some amazing things. The person who appeared was a man with a scar on his forehead that spread to his left eye. He was wearing a silver armor, and the word, 0, was engraved on the left chest of the armor. Who are you? Brian's expression changed slightly, but he didn't realize when the other party came. For the first time, my name is Absolute Zero Silver, one of the members of the 9 Ghost Gates of the Gate of Hades, and I participated in this meeting on behalf of Hades. The man who claimed to be Silver, grinned Isho, leaned on the round table with one hand, looked at Erlang's legs, and said, since everyone has arrived, this Snow Saint, can we start? He. Hearing this, Shui Sheng chuckled lightly and sat down immediately. He glanced at the 3 of them and looked at them secretly. The most magical is Hades, who has reached the level of the pseudo-abyss. Secondly, it is Yin. As one of the 9 ghost gates of the Gate of the Underworld, the magic power is very huge, much stronger than the General Holy 10. The last is the leader of the 6 demon generals, Brian, whose magic power is not as good as Saint 10. Of course, this person is only the leader, not the president. Thinking of this, he looked at Yin and said, you Pluto won't come. After a while, someone will come to visit, please let him wait. After speaking, he looked at Brian again, and said, as for you, you have a dual personality, and your inner personality is the president. With your superficial personality, your strength is not worth mentioning, and you are not worthy of sitting here. What did you say? Brian was furious, but at the same time he was secretly surprised. He didn't expect that Dream would even know about this. However, it doesn't matter. Since the 3 parties are here, anyway, let's talk about the meeting first. Shui Sheng opened the folding fan and opened his mouth with a light smile. The only purpose of this meeting is to annihilate the Light Crusade against the Coalition. Seize the dominance of this Ishgar continent. Chapter 0642 _ The Dark Council is formed. Destroy the light and crusade the coalition. Yin smiled, Vivi narrowed his eyes, and said, as far as I know, this time, the council unites many luminary guilds, and it is your dreams that are going to be attacked, not our Balam alliance. You dream of joining the alliance. Brian snorted softly, he has no objection to joining Dreamland. After all, it is a powerful guild, but Dreamland's attitude is too arrogant, and he doesn't take them seriously at all. Join. Shui Sheng looked at it in surprise, why do you think so? Of course it is the Balam alliance, which has become a vassal of our dreams. How could we Tilda join the alliance? You. Brian was furious, slapped the table, and stood up abruptly. HMPH, sit down. Before Shui Sheng could speak, a cold hum suddenly came. At the gate, Lu Daoban stepped forward, and at the same time as a cold hum came out, there was a huge momentum that enveloped the space. Brian groaned and was forced back to his seat by the aura. And seeing the 6 spots, the rest of the 6 demon generals also changed their colors. They recalled that a few days ago, this person suddenly came to the door and easily suppressed them with 1 against 6. We are not asking for your opinion, will you negotiate terms with Ant? Lu Daoban said coldly, we are just conveying orders. Those who obey, become members of the Dark Council, those who do not obey, disappear immediately. As for the Balam Alliance, there is no need to exist. Bastard. Brian's face was very ugly, but he didn't dare to make a mistake. Shui Sheng didn't know, but this six-spotted spot was too scary. Dark Council. Yin raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? Literally, since the light magic world has a magic council, then our dark magic world must have a similar organization. Liu Daoban said indifferently. This institution is called the Dark Council. The speaker is appointed by our dream team, and there are many members under its banner. Each member must be the president of a guild. It's interesting. Yin nodded clearly. No wonder Dream has called so many dark guilds to unify the dark magic world. For a long time, it is the light that fights the darkness, and few darkness take the initiative to attack the light camp. The reason is very simple, because the dark magic world is a mess of sand. Even if it is the Balam Alliance, it is only to facilitate the actions of the three major guilds, and there is no bullshit binding force between them. I'll give you a minute to think about it now. Liu Daoban said bluntly. After a minute, those who do not agree will disappear immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, a guild turned and left. Let's go. Thunder Roaring President shook his head. We have no interest in joining any dark council, sorry. He took more than 20 members and left quickly. As for the original direct boss, the Devil's Heart, they were too lazy to deal with it. See this, the presidents of some other guilds have also moved. Perhaps, now is a good time to leave the three dark guilds. However, the next moment, an electric light flickered. The lightning flashed like a finger, traversing a distance of dozens of meters in an instant, piercing from behind the thunderous roaring president, and shattering the opponent's heart in one breath. What? The guild leader's breathing stagnated, and the whole person froze. He staggered a few steps and turned his head to stare at Liu Daoban. You don't keep your word. When I say disappear, I don't mean to let you go, literally disappear. Liu Daoban glanced at him, and Tong Li immediately passed it on. In an instant, lightning flashed, and the crackling sound continued. The president, under the manic thunder and lightning, turned into a fly. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned and took a deep breath. They couldn't even understand how Liu Daoban made a move. 30 seconds have passed now. Hearing this suddenly, someone swallowed his saliva immediately and said, we join, we ghosts and ghosts join. Our corpse souls join. Desert Scorpion joins. Suddenly, a group of guild presidents who wanted to leave announced their participation. Before a minute was over, the 14 guilds had already chosen to surrender. The time has come. Shui Sheng sat on the main seat, swayed his folding fan, and said with a smile, there are 3 of you left. I join. After a moment of silence, Hades gritted his teeth and said, the condition is that I need a position as a counselor. Although you didn't say it, I don't think all member guilds can become counselors, right? That's right. Since that's the case, our 6 demon generals are also joining us, and we also need the position of a member of parliament. Hearing this, Shui Sheng nodded and turned to look at Yin. You are the only one left. I can't be the master. Yin shrugged and said, I'm just one of the 9 ghost gates, and I can't make decisions on behalf of Hades. Your body has been in a tense state, and the magic vortex in your body is also running at high speed. Shui Sheng smiled and said, don't be so afraid. Unlike Madara, I'm not so irritable. Really? Cold sweat dripped from the silver forehead, and he felt a sharpness that pierced the skin. I think, I can bring these words to Hades. Before his words were finished, Shui Sheng put away the folding fan with a snap. Snow wind. With a whisper, a strong wind hung in the hall, and the wind and snow raged, filling the entire space in an instant. Each snowflake is a crystal of tiny 6 flowers, as sharp as a blade. At this moment, more than 100 million snowflake knives slashed towards the silver one after another. In the face of this terrifying blow, Yin slapped it with a palm, and immediately formed a shield of ice and purity. At the same time, he quickly retreated, preparing to escape. However, snowflakes covered the entire hall. Without waiting for him to take the second step, hundreds of millions of snowflake knives were fired from behind him, and in half an instant, he was cut into countless pieces. Dead, like a tempting angel, the only girl among the 6 demon generals murmured in a low voice. Not dead. Shui Sheng waved his hand, and the wind and snow dissipated, as if it had never appeared before. Just now, it was just a clone, a special missing body, and the main body is still hidden somewhere on the island. Of course, he can't leave. Out, someone will take care of him. Speaking, he stood up and announced, then, since everyone here chooses to join, I will announce that the Dark Council is now established. President, I will be the chairman. Meanwhile, Karna Island, the edge of the forest. On top of a big tree, Yin sat cross-legged, and suddenly opened his eyes at this moment, and his face suddenly turned pale. How is it possible the ability of ice will not work on me at all? I am immune to ice magic, and that blow just now can kill me instantly. He took a deep breath, his face shocked. As soon as he gritted his teeth, he jumped down from the tree, and after confirming that he was not exposed, he immediately left. However, the black crows suddenly danced in the sky ahead and gathered into a figure. I've come, are you in such a hurry to leave? Who are you? Silver's face changed, and he frowned in a fighting stance. Don't be so nervous, I'm just an ordinary member of the dream. Uchiha Itachi said softly, of course, you'll have no problem hitting 10. Amaterasu. In an instant, a ray of black fire was born in front of Yin's chest. Chapter 0643-Advent Dark Alliance 1. Amaterasu. Uchiha Itachi intercepted the silver, and a pair of 3-hooked jade writing round eyes instantly turned into an eternal kaleidoscope. The pupil power was transmitted through the line of sight, and where the eyes gathered, a black flame was suddenly born. Puff! The flames filled the air, and the black flames burned everything. What? Yin's pupils shrank, his expression shocked. There was no preparation for this sudden attack. When he realized that he was being attacked, the flames burning in his chest had rapidly expanded, covering half of his body. Damn it! What kind of ability is this, similar to magic of the eye? The magic power surged all over the body, and the magic power of extremely cold ice permeated the whole body, trying to extinguish the fire of these Amaterasu. But the fire of Amaterasu, until the target dies, will never go out, and the magic of silver has been burned away, making it difficult to fight at all. What the hell is going on? My magic can instantly freeze a lake, but it can't extinguish this flame. Yin's face was extremely solemn. Before the flames filled his body, he decisively gritted his teeth, abandoned his armor and right arm, and got out of Amaterasu. Puff! Blood splattered, and the broken arm, together with the armor, was reduced to ashes under the fire of Amaterasu before it fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, Yin suddenly shed a cold sweat. It's dangerous if I hesitate for a second, it's over. Thinking like this, he suddenly raised his head, stared at Uchiha Itachi, and said, I remembered, some time ago, the person who made a fuss about Magnolia was you. What is Uchiha called? Weasel. Uchiha Itachi said calmly, let's praise you for the time being. The strong man broke his wrist and saved his life. Amaterasu is powerful, it still retains the characteristics of the flame. The flame is diffuse and requires a certain amount of contact. Of course, this is because he did not use his limit pupil power, otherwise, the other party would have no chance to react. In a fraction of a tenth of a second, Amaterasu devours each other. Hearing this, Yin's face was still heavy. My missing body is a special missing body, how did you find out? I looked down on us too much. The general missing body is just a combination of magic power and mind, not a real body of flesh and blood, but your clone has flesh and blood, it should be using a corpse, maybe it is a living person. Uchiha Itachi said calmly, although this special missing body can be confused with the real, the essence of the soul will not change. People who can understand the soul can see at a glance that it is a clone, someone who is being manipulated. Doll. Would you mistake a doll for a real person? I see. See. Yin suddenly realized that, but his face became more and more ugly. Equals G. Is less than or equal to. It's troublesome, if you want to leave but can't leave, the clone probably won't be able to deceive this person, why? Close hollow corner bracket. Yin had a headache thinking about it, and he was not sure to escape the black fire again. I really shouldn't have come. Although I am a dead person myself, this guy is afraid that my body will be burnt out. Thinking of this, Yin suddenly sighed. He put away his fighting stance, and raised his solitary left hand upwards. Surrender, I surrender. I need prisoner treatment, he said quickly. He. Seeing this, Uchiha Itachi smiled. Do you think, I don't know what you're thinking? You died 10 years ago, and you were a necromancer, in the Nine Ghosts Gate. With your corpse, you are resurrected, you are essentially a puppet manipulated by others. Quote. Silver is a living corpse. Since it is a corpse, it is naturally not afraid of death. It seems that you are very familiar with the gate of the underworld. Yin's expression suddenly solidified. However, in the next moment, a huge pupil force came and instantly invaded his consciousness. The whole world disappeared, replaced by a pair of eyes. Those eyes that ignore everything, like the eyes of a god above, look down on all living beings. Don't be a god. Uchiha Itachi's voice sounded, and in an instant, Yin's consciousness was defeated and his memory was tampered with. Huh. With a grunt, Yin's body trembled suddenly, and then his expression became dull, and it took a while to recover. Silver, join Itachi-sama. Suddenly, he fell to his knees and spoke in a respectful tone. Meanwhile, in some unknown place. In a gloomy laboratory, a man wearing a strange hat, wearing a mask and holding a staff suddenly raised his head. What's wrong? A curious voice came, and I saw a beautiful woman with a graceful figure and a devil's horn standing at the door of the laboratory. Sierra. The masked man's voice was low, and the hand holding the staff was a skeleton. There is a problem with the silver side. The connection between me and him has been cut off. Dark Council. Sarah was a little surprised. Counting the time, it's almost the beginning. Is it Yin's betrayal? No, Mian Junin waved his hand, and his voice came from Juyu. It was interfered by a more powerful force. Pause, he added. For example, there is a hemp rope between me and you, but now, someone has locked you in a cage. That's it, an easy to understand metaphor. Sarah smiled and said, I didn't expect that there are more powerful necromancers than you in this world. In this regard, the masked man was unsmiling. If it's a necromancer, that's fine. I'm afraid it's a more special power. In that case, I'm going to see the situation. I'm curious about this dream. Sierra left a sentence, turned and left the laboratory. Karna Island, the first floor of the temple, the rotunda. When everyone saw Yin walking back by himself, they were all surprised. Didn't you run away? Brian asked suspiciously. Run. I made a stupid mistake before. It was Lord Itachi who influenced me. Compared with the dark rat organization like the Gate of Hades, it is more desirable to dream. Yin grinned Isho and said, Sir Shui, since the Dark Council has been established, please give your order. Very good. Zusheng nodded with satisfaction, and immediately said, the Magic Council does not know what to do, but it has formed a bright crusade coalition to crusade our Dark Council. This is a challenge to us. Hearing this, everyone was full of slander. Obviously it was the dream of their own business, and in a blink of an eye, they became the entire Dark Council. Just listening to Shui Sheng continued. Instead of sitting here and waiting for the other party to call, of course it is to take the initiative to attack, which is more in line with the style of our Dark Council. Having said that, he snapped his fingers. Immediately, a wisp of black smoke flashed by, turning into a shadow demon. As soon as it appeared, the shadow demon ripped apart the space, like tearing open a package. With a tug of both hands, it tore open a huge gap in the space. Everyone, in front of this passage is Magnolia, the gathering place of the allied forces of light. Zusheng shook his folding fan, and the old god said on the ground, "Now, it's a good time for us to launch a surprise attack. All the black magicians present should participate in this operation. I order, the Council of Darkness, to launch a surprise attack immediately. Against the light allied forces, annihilate them. Chapter-641 The Coming Dark Alliance 2. Second update regarding the ranking of the Holy Ten, because it is 7 years ago, there is no detailed introduction, so I can only guess the ranking. Gerald is behind Joseph, because Gerald's evaluation of the Holy Ten is the mind-body chi crane. Personally, I think Gerald is better than Joseph. As for Jura, since he himself said it was the last seat, then give him the 10th. Close black lens bracket. Permanently neutral country, Kingdom of Fury, Magnolia Town. At this moment, in the hall of the Guild Fairy Tale, the wizard guilds from all over are gathered. The president of each guild serves as a representative and participates in the pre-war meeting. The long table was pieced together. On both sides of the long table, more than 30 presidents sat. Of course, what is even more eye-catching than these guild leaders is that on the side of the long table, the 5 Holy 10 Great Wizards are sitting alone. The 5 are: Number 10, the Ace Mage of the Guild Snake Princess Scale, Jula Regis. Number 8, a member of the Magic Council, Zekrane. Number 7, the leader of the Guild Ghost's 15th partner, Joseph Zala. Number 6, Guild Fairy Tale President, Makarov Dora. Number 3, one of the 4 kings of Ishgar, Alfheim. Only 5 people. In the silence, Alfheim, one of the 4 heavenly kings, spoke in a low voice. The other 3 didn't come. He was a short little old man sitting there with Vivi hunched over. Is it still on the way? Joseph grinned and glanced over. The gathering of the Holy Ten is truly a grand occasion rarely seen in decades. The goal this time is to defeat the most vicious and evil dark guild in history. Gerald said with a solemn expression. I'm not here to play, this operation is led by our Senate, but since Mr. Alfheim is here, please preside over the operation. I'll let it go. Alfheim shook his head and said, Zickline, since it is a crusade led by the Magic Council, you are the one to arrange the work. Hearing this, Gerald nodded. Then, first of all, we must know, where is the dream home? Mr. Makarov. Hearing this, Makarov held the teacup and sighed. No one knows exactly where it is, but Karna Island is probably one of their strongholds. Therefore, we need to attack there and catch the dream members. Ask where the old nest is. How is the strength of the enemy? Jura asked curiously. Dream, I also heard recently that this mysterious dark guild needs such a large coalition. Usually, the 3 major guilds that deal with the Balam Alliance are at most 5 or 6 powerful guilds joining forces, but to deal with the dream, even the council has rolled up its sleeves to start the film. Of course. Gerald said solemnly. He looked at the more than 30 presidents opposite. Don't underestimate the enemy, they are much stronger than you think. Let's put it this way, among the powers they have, there are strong women. The Dragon of the Apocalypse, comparable to the Akunorokia of the Apocalypse, and the magical life, the worst, in the dream, there are more than 2 great wizards of the abyss. 2 people, that's because I'm afraid to scare these presidents. Actually, according to the information held by the council, there are 3 or even 4 of the abyss. And above this, there is Emperor Qin. However, fortunately, the abyss of magic is only a legend. No one knows how strong it is, and it will not be easily frightened. But very strong, much stronger than Saint Ten, that's for sure. Therefore, hearing Gerald's words, the guild leaders looked at each other and took a deep breath. Isn't it a joke? The leader of the Blue Sky Horse couldn't help saying. And at this moment, a series of laughter sounded. Laughter seemed to come from all directions, coming out of thin air. Jura's eyes narrowed, and the magic perception probed outwards. Alfheim, one of the 4 heavenly kings, frowned suddenly, turned his eyes and looked up at the top of the hall. I saw a mass of darkness like silk-like smoke, swirling around, quickly gathering and pulling a human shape. A dark figure. Really look up to us. The shadow demon floated down and sat directly in the center of the long table. He faced the 15 saints and said with a chuckle, "First time meeting, I am the dream messenger, shadow demon." Hearing this suddenly, everyone present was shocked and stood up one after another. Only the 5 holy tens were still sitting there calmly. Makarov said solemnly, "No shadow comes and goes without a trace, no wonder it can be called a shadow demon. Did you take away the things underground in our guild?" "That one." Shadow demon raised his eyebrows and nodded, "It wasn't me, but we took it. I didn't expect you to be interested in seeing little girls naked, Makarov, I didn't expect you to be such a person." This was another sarcasm and another ridicule, which instantly made Makarov's face darken. What is the naked body of a little girl? That is the founder of their fairy tale. However, Lumen Xingwei is a secret, and it is not suitable to say it at such a time, so Makarov chose to shut up. Ulfheim folded his arms around his chest and looked at the shadow demon. "I'm sure, you don't know magic, and you're not human, what are you? From my eyes, you are an aggregate of dark forces, are you a magical being?" "No, magical beings must have the breath of magic." "Strange. He he he." Shadow demon chuckled twice, "Is it one of the 4 heavenly kings? If you don't stay in the deep mountains and forests to cultivate, and come here to join in the fun, I'm afraid you won't be able to go back. If it's a heavenly god, you can barely take a look, the other 3 of you, don't you? Worth mentioning." Quote, "What are you doing here?" Gerald narrowed his eyes and said, "Do you want to negotiate now?" "Negotiation? No, no," 223 declared war. Shadow demon haha, Isho, said, "I, on behalf of the Dark Council, declare war on you. Light Alliance, no, I declare war on your entire magical world. Until one side is completely defeated, otherwise the war will not stop." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Eternal death. Dark Council. Go. Everyone has doubts, but at this time, no one cared about the doubts, and the only thought was to leave the shadow demon behind. In an instant, colorful magic appeared one after another. Ha 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 ha. Buried by many magic, the shadow demon's laughter kept echoing. "The war has started, your time is running out, everyone, go ahead and cherish it." Boom. The explosion sounded, the fairy tale guild shook violently, and the entire hall instantly turned to ashes. Many wizards who were in the meeting fled one after another. "Damn, escaped," someone said angrily. "How did you escape?" "Time and space magic." Meanwhile, over Magnolia. The shadow demon was as silky as smoke, with no shape, only half of its body. He looked at everything below indifferently, and Vivi reached out and turned his palms into claws, ripping apart the space violently. Stab it. The sky was like the curtain of a stage play, being lifted. The next moment, in the darkness, countless figures poured out one after another. The Dark Alliance is here now. Chapter-645 _ the strongest magician in the continent. Damn, why is it in the air? At the exit of the Shadow World, the Dark Coalition forces poured out, and before they had time to observe the surroundings, they fell one by one toward Magnolia below. At a height of tens of hundreds of meters, even a magician, falling like this is not enough. Shadow Demon, what do you mean? Hades stood on the edge of the exit, swept his eyes to the Shadow Demon, and said angrily, "Open the passage in such a place, we will suffer losses before we open it. No one can die." Shadow Demon chuckled, "It's time for you to go out too." Saying that, he waved his hand and closed the Shadow World. The next moment, the Demon Heart, the 6 demon generals, and the others all fell down. Fortunately, the magic power of this group of people is high, and this height is completely irrelevant. In terms of combat power, it is the Dark Council that has the absolute advantage, but the high-end combat power is that the Light Coalition is stronger. No accident, the Dark Coalition will be defeated. The Shadow Demon secretly said in his heart. Of course, this is the result of eliminating the dream. In order for the two sides to be able to fight back and forth, of course, one or two people need to be dispatched by the dream to contain some combat power. Lucia. The Shadow Demon spoke softly, and the next moment, beside him, a crack in the shadow world opened, and one man and three women walked out one after another. Urusha, Urlu, Murti, and Absolute Zero Silver. Ulu is unreliable, this woman will not sincerely deal with the Light Alliance, and the other three are much easier to handle. Go ahead, contain the Holy Ten and some high-end combat power. No problem. Urusha nodded, and the four immediately jumped down and joined the battlefield. After projecting all the troops, the Shadow Demon withdrew his gaze, and the shadow of the Isho disappeared. Come on, so fast. It turned out to be from the air. At the ruins of the Fairy Tale Guild, the expressions of the five saints changed. The number exceeds 500, and the Devil's Heart and the 6 Devil Generals are all there. Jura murmured, what's going on? It seems that the dark magic world has changed. These guilds are all members of the Balam Alliance. Could it be that the so-called Dark Council is this? During the conversation between several people, the face became more and more bad. Alfheim said solemnly, anyway, fight first. The presidents of the major guilds, prepare to assemble your manpower. As for the enemy's high-end combat power, we will deal with it first. Having said that, he took the first step and walked towards the Dark Coalition. Seeing this, everyone took action. In fact, there is no need to contact at all. Many wizards of the Light Alliance can see the emergence of the Dark Alliance, and the closest place between the two sides has already begun to exchange fire. Let's do it too. Gerald looked at the rest of the Holy Ten and said, remember to let ordinary people evacuate. The war had begun, but Gerald did not act. The people around him had already started to fight. He showed a sneer, with so many mages, if they can absorb the magic power of this group of people, the Ars system can be completed. Unfortunately, the Ars system is occupied by fantasy. After a pause, he whispered again, however, it doesn't matter, Dream holds the resurrection technique in his hands, as long as he gets it, that's enough. Meanwhile, the Cathedral of Cardia. On the roof of the church, a group of crows flew over and gradually condensed into a figure. Uchiha Itachi stood at the highest point, his bloody eyes calmly looking at the battlefield below the church. Unlike the Light Coalition Army, the Dark Coalition Army obviously has no intention of cooperating with each other. They all fight in guild units. At this moment, under Uchiha Itachi's eyes, is the soul of the corpse, and what they are facing is the coalition of the two light guilds. And not far from here, there is a restaurant. As soon as Natsu left the restaurant, a man stopped in front of him. To be precise, one person and one snake. Who are you? Natsu frowned. The dragon slayer of the old days. Kebra snorted. This uncle is the poisonous dragon slayer of the new era, one of the 6 magic generals. Just as he was talking, another little girl came out. Wendy, back off. Natsu stopped in front of the little girl and said with a grin, there is a fight. As soon as the voice fell, he had already rushed up. Natsu, Wendy was taken aback, and then she felt hundreds of magical auras. This is. 2 days ago, she participated in the coalition on behalf of Hua Mao's house, and met Natsu, who was also a dragon slayer. Originally, I just wanted to find Grandin, and I didn't really want to participate in the crusade, but now it seems that, let alone the crusade, it is obviously someone else who has come to the door. Mr. Natsu, I will help you with auxiliary magic. Thinking of this, Wendy shouted and immediately raised her hand. Sky magic galloping wind. Power of steel wrist. Power of armor. In an instant, 3 magics flew towards Natsu. Speed, defense, attack. In just a short while, Natsu's 3-phase ability has been greatly improved. And situations like this are happening everywhere, and the entire Magnolia has completely turned into a heart-pounding battlefield within 10 minutes. At the same time, there were at least dozens of battles going on. On the roof of the cathedral, Uchiha Itachi withdrew his gaze. Yes, let them consume it first. As for the other Holy Tens, it seems that Madara needs to intercept them. Letting them join the battlefield will break the balance. Thinking of this, he turned his eyes to the north direction. Outside the town, on a hillside trail. The carriage was escaping quickly when suddenly, the driver saw a man walking in front of him. Hey, run away too, there's a massive war going on in Magnolia. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the man waved his hand. In an instant, the ground cracked, the carriage overturned, and a carload of people rolled down the hillside. What are you running away from? There is a fight over there. Of course I know, there is Serena, the god of my 8 dragons, and the mere Dark Lord. Suddenly, his words stopped, and he narrowed his eyes and stared ahead. Kakaka. A tree grew out of thin air in the middle of the road, and then, from the trunk, a human face emerged. Immediately afterwards, the face was squeezed out, and a stern man with long white hair had come out. Liu Daoban moved his neck a few times before looking at the person in front of him. Wait for a while, the head of the 4 heavenly kings. Who are you? Serena's eyes flashed, secretly alert. Dream Master, 6 spots. As soon as the words fell, in an instant, the hillside where the two were located immediately began to surging, and trees rose up from the ground, like tree people, and they stretched out their branches one after another, wanting Serena to catch them. In this regard, Serena did not dodge at all, and was neatly bundled into a zongzi. You are quite confident. Liu Daoban couldn't help laughing, but his eyes were still calm. The head of the 4 heavenly kings who can destroy his hometown is still interested in joining this bright coalition. With that said, a flame suddenly burned the surrounding trees. Serena stepped out of the flames, and with each step, his magic power rose by 1 level. In the blink of an eye, the magic power filling this space has far exceeded that of the Holy 10, or even 10 times that of the average Holy 10 magic guide. 4 heavenly kings. I don't need this title. I only have one title, the strongest magician in the continent. Between the words, he suddenly raised his fist and punched it out brazenly. Purgatory Dragons Hot Hell. Chapter 0646 _ How can the mere 8 dragons be enough? Purgatory Dragons Hot Hell. Serena punched, and the fist wrapped the flames. At the moment of the shot, a huge flame sphere suddenly swelled. This large fireball was 100 meters in diameter. After it was shot, it immediately rolled towards Liu Daoban. It ran over the ground like a heavy wheel, leaving broken marks. Fire Dragon Slayer Magic. It's several levels stronger than Natsu, and it is indeed the strongest in the mainland. In the face of this blow, Liu Daoban made a calm evaluation, and then made the seal slowly. Instant body art. In an instant, his figure disappeared, and at the same time as he disappeared, the big fireball ran over and rushed forward. From the hillside, it was pushed all the way, and it swept a distance of thousands of meters before it finally detonated, causing thick smoke and dust. Dodged. Your moves are quite interesting. Serena was a little surprised, and when he spoke, he suddenly turned sideways and punched the ground. The earth of the cave dragon is cracked. Boom. With one punch, in an instant, the surrounding earth shook violently, comparable to a magnitude 10 earthquake. The Liu Daoban, which had just escaped the blow, had not stabilized yet, and the ground beneath his feet had already collapsed. 863 was invisible to the naked eye. Boom boom boom. When the dust rioted, the rocks danced, and the 6 spots fell, countless rocks filled it up and buried him deep underground. After a while, a small peak formed here. The corner of the mountain. Serena suddenly laughed. The dark guild that claims to be the most vicious and vicious guild in history, is it only to this extent? It's ridiculous. He felt the release and was convinced that the other party was dead, so he shook his head and continued towards Magnolia. However, just as he took a step, his expression suddenly changed. Nothing has changed in the surroundings. the ground is still flat, and the roads between the hillsides have not left any traces of battle. And in front of him, dozens of meters away, the man who should have been buried deep in the ground by him also stood there, not even changing his posture. What? Serena's expression turned cold, he covered his forehead, and gritted his teeth. Illusion. How can this be? My magic is not disordered, how can your illusion work? Illusion magic is generally accomplished by dazzling the opponent's magic power. Usually in the face of this kind of magic, you need to stabilize your own magic power in order to escape from the illusion. But now this scene has surpassed Serena's knowledge. His magic power has always been stable, and he can't go wrong at all. What did you do? Thinking of this, Serena squinted and stared at Ludauban. The so-called mainland is the strongest, can't even tell if he is in the illusion. Ludauban's face was as usual, and he mocked, what were you thinking about just now? You actually showed a smug expression. Very good. Don't think that the same move can be used on me a second time. This time it's the real body. Serena laughed angrily, his hands stretched out to the sides, 5 fingers forming claws, like the claws of a dragon, wrapped around the storm. Storm Dragon's Yinfang Nongyu. A loud roar, his hands were retracted in front of his mouth, and at the same time he opened his mouth to spit, and the storm that was wrapped around his hands suddenly swept outwards. In an instant, the mountains on both sides of the ramp were directly blown into powder by the storm. The huge magic power destroyed everything within 100 meters. The 6 spots are also within the coverage of this move. This storm, like a sharp blade, can easily cut steel. Almighty push. Whispering in his mouth, Ludauban's eyes condensed, and an invisible repulsive force centered on him, instantly bouncing off the shrouded storm. Puff. This magic was just born, and before it could exert its power, it was suddenly annihilated. Similar to gravitational magic. Serena snorted, and subconsciously retreated, pulling away. It's really troublesome. He avoided the repulsion, and at the same time swallowed magic in his mouth, and suddenly roared. Neptune's water array is in a circle. I saw the seawater suddenly appeared under his feet, and the seawater set off waves. The top of the waves was 100 meters. Hundreds of millions of tons of water, like the hand of the sea god, slapped down violently. Your magic power is indeed huge, and you are the magician with the highest magic power level one have ever seen. But I am tired of watching the monkey show you play. Ludauban snorted coldly. Instead of retreating, he advanced, facing the huge waves, 6 Dao mode. This time, within the body of Lu Dao sang, water, fire, wind, thunder, earth, and the 5 attributes of chakra are constantly changing, and finally yin and yang are born. In an instant, the power of the 5 elements of yin and yang converged and turned into 9 pitch-black jade balls behind him. In the process of moving forward, Ludauban grabbed his right hand, and suddenly, a black ball of jade flew out and turned into a long stick. The next moment, with a wave of the long stick, the huge wave that fell down was immediately divided into 2. Just as the ice and snow were melted and evaporated by the scorching sun in an instant, the huge wave touched the black stick and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Impossible. Serena's eyes widened, and for the first time he showed a shocked expression. It's not that my seawater evaporated, or that the seawater was moved to other dimensions, but annihilated. The seawater disappeared and was wiped away abruptly. You must know that this is the product of the limitation of his magic power, not ordinary seawater, but even so, the opponent annihilated his magic power with a single wave. That black stick, what is it? Sensing the crisis, Serena didn't dare to care so much, and hurriedly stepped back. However, his speed was still far behind Ludauban. Serena just turned around, and in his field of vision, Ludauban has already intercepted in front. Didn't you have a good time just now? What are you running? With a slight flick of Ludauban, the black stick suddenly shot out. Seeing this, Serena's hair stood on end, and he quickly slapped it out with a paw. Lightning roar of Thunder Light Dragon. Roar. Thunder Dragon roared, and the magic of thunder spurted out, turning into a thunder and lightning dragon. Shenlong opened his huge mouth, and the surrounding electric lights flickered, maniacally heading towards the black stick. However, it was enough to annihilate a town with a single blow. The moment it touched the black rod, it immediately annihilated and disappeared. It really is annihilation. Serena's body leaned back, avoiding the black stick at the extreme distance. This time, it almost flew past his ear. If there was no lightning roar blocking 1/10 of a second, his head would have been penetrated. You bastard! Realizing that he had just been locked in hell, Serena was furious. Excessive anger, meaningless. The 6 spots approached slowly, and 8 black balls floated and swirled behind them. You are very close to the abyss, but it is far from the real abyss. If you want to fight me, how can 8 dragons be enough? 800 dragons are almost the same. Chapter 0647_movers, die. How come 8 dragons are enough? 800 dragons are about the same. Lu Daoban opened his mouth disdainfully. Serena is indeed powerful, much stronger than the average Saint 10. In a one-on-one situation, if the normal Saint 10 fights against him, he is afraid that he will be killed by one move. However, no matter how powerful it is only a very high level of magic power, which is essentially different from the abyss level. Your dragon-slaying magic, I have finished analyzing it, it's over. Speaking softly, Lu Daoban's hands were sealed with lightning, and then he swallowed a ray from his mouth. Shanfa Lan Dungguang Fang. This strike is similar to a laser. It is a 6-path immortal technique, which contains the power of yin and yang and the 5 elements. The attack speed is comparable to the speed of light. At the moment of completion, this purple ray has already traversed. A terrifying ray, like a fairy's pen, stroked lightly. In an instant, the earth was cut, and the entire hillside trail was divided into 2, creating a bottomless track. And right in front of this trajectory, is the god Serena. Seeing this, Serena's pupils shrank. His long-standing fighting instincts allowed him to easily judge that this move was enough to kill him and easily split his body in 2. The art of 8 dragons. Thinking of this, he roared. Boom! The huge magic power burst out in an instant, and his body exploded, turning into 8 dragons. The dragons have different colors and represent 8 attributes. This is not a real dragon, but the embodiment of its magic power. At this moment, facing the immortal magic of Lu Daoban, his 8 dragon heads all opened their mouths. The magic power of each attribute is combined with the magic factors of nature to quickly form 8 powerful magics. The roar of the 8 dragons. In the roar, the 8 attributes entangled and merged with each other, forming a chaotic dragon breath. However, the dragon's breath could not be played very far. A purple light flashed, and the dragon's breath was cut in an instant. This dragon breath is divided into 2, falling to the left and right sides, smashing on the mountain, immediately annihilating everything within a radius of several hundred meters, and turning it into powder. This terrifying blow abruptly erased a mountain and changed the terrain of this area. Impossible. Serena was stunned. My strongest magic. Whoosh. Lan Dungguang swept his teeth and easily cut his body of 8 dragons. Boom boom boom. Smoke and dust filled the big explosion, and cries of pain kept coming. Seeing this, Lu Daoban calmly said to himself, this trick is quite powerful. If you use it from the beginning, it may still cause me a little bit of damage. You are too confident in your own abilities. The enemy likes to tease each other with great power. As he spoke, he walked towards the smoke of the explosion. The dense dust and flames rolled up, and suddenly at a certain moment, like encountering a black hole, it was absorbed and swallowed in one breath. When everything disappeared, Serena's figure was exposed again. His 8 dragon form has disappeared, and when he turned into a human form, he is covered in blood. Under the heavy damage, his magic power has dropped by more than half. Damn, he gasped violently, his eyelids drooping, staring at Lu Daoban who approached. Damn monster. As if hearing his curse, Lu Daoban flicked his fingers, and suddenly, a black ball flew out. On the way of the flight, the Chu Dao jade was ever-changing, and finally condensed into a piercing needle, and in an instant, Serena's body was riddled with holes. One penetrated between the eyebrows, one pierced the heart, and 8 penetrated into the magic vortex. Serena's complexion froze, his body shook, and his vitality was rapidly draining. You like to tease the enemy, it's nothing. But in the world of force, being weak is the original sin. If you can't reach the abyss of the devil's way, you are just ants after all. After speaking, Liu Daoben has walked to Serena. He made a seal on his hands and whispered, "Wood done," the technique of the wooden cross. Kakaka. The branches of 2 trees drilled out of the ground, and they quickly tied Serena and hung it into a cross. 6. Dao, Madara. With his last breath, Serena said with infinite anger, "I'll be back." Before he could finish his words, he tilted his head and lost his life. Liu Daoben didn't bother to pay attention to these words, stretched out his hand and pressed the opponent's mouth, and a mysterious force suddenly shrouded away. After a while, a mysterious rune appeared in his palm. 8 attribute Dragon Slayer magic. This guy's dragon-slaying magic is not taught by giant dragons, but the dragon crystals in his body. Thinking like this, Liu Daoben probed the other's body, but did not perceive the existence of the dragon crystal, no. Or, the dragon crystal has completely merged with his body. The dragon crystal is made by a giant dragon and is the crystallization of the power of a giant dragon. Liu Daoben is curious about this thing, and it is worth studying it. Unfortunately, it could not be found in Serena's body. Forget it, without Serena, there are Poison Dragon and Thunder Dragon. It's the same with them. The worst thing is, let Grandi make one. Thinking of this, Liu Daoben ignored it, put Serena's body on the wooden cross, and then raised his finger a little. Immediately, the blood donation he left behind carved a line of fonts on the ground. Movers, die. After doing this, he flashed away and disappeared. A quarter of an hour later, a small group of people slowly approached, 3 men and 1 woman. The leader has short blonde hair in one color, a lightning bolt in the left eye, music headphones in his ears, and a coat draped over his shoulders. Suddenly, his footsteps stopped, and Vivi moved his nose. The magic particles here are extremely chaotic. They are traces of super magic. The disorder that can cause such a wide range of magic particles is probably super magic. Laxus. That's. The woman among the 4 suddenly widened her eyes. Someone, it was hung up. A few people were startled, and then quickly approached. When they approached, they were shocked to find that the terrain here did not match the number in their memory. A bottomless gully in the middle of the road. 0.5. At the end of the gully, a man was hanged on a cross, donating blood tick by tick, constantly dyeing the ground below red. This person is a god. I've seen him once before. Laxus exclaimed, "How is this possible? He actually died." The 4 of them took a deep breath, then looked at each other, and immediately rushed towards Magnolia. At the same time, in Magnolia, between the major battlefields, Lucy and Gray are dealing with many dark wizards. But at this moment, a burst of ice suddenly struck, instantly besieging the 2 of them, forming a field of ice that was dozens of meters up to now. Immediately afterwards, Yin appeared from the cold air. Reinforcements again. Gray's tone was low. However, the other party's next sentence made his complexion sluggish. It's been 10 years, my son. Chapter 0648 _ Lord of the 4-Star Elements. It's been 10 years, my son. Yin Tread appeared and walked into the field of ice. The surrounding area was dozens of meters, and it was frozen by his magic power, forming an ice wall. Hearing this, Gray's face was dull. What did you say? Suddenly a man appeared, claiming to be his father, and no one would believe it. 10 years ago, Gray was only 8 years old, and the face of his father was already blurred in his memory. Moreover, his father, 10 years ago, had already died in the hands of the undead calamity, Daliola. Can't believe it. It doesn't matter, I didn't come to meet you. It's just that this war will continue to expand, and the outcome of the Light Alliance has long been doomed. I will subdue you here to prevent you from being killed by others. Yin said softly, then stretched out one arm and slammed it forward. Don't resist, resisting is just a waste of precious time. Kai. A wave of his hand, an ice magic force was thrown out, and the ground froze, spreading towards 15 Gray. Seeing this, Gray hurriedly said, Lucy, stay away, I'll deal with him. However, the words did not answer. After Gray dodged the attack, he immediately looked back. I saw a few dark tentacles that bound Lucy and grabbed it in the air. And the other end of the tentacle is linked to a man wearing a mage's pointed hat. Joseph. Gray's face changed greatly, and he scolded, What do you mean? Ho, calling me by my first name. The Wizard of Fairy Tale, that's vulgar. Joseph seemed to be in a good mood, and a smug laugh came out of his mouth. Let go of Lucy. What are you trying to do, you bastard? Gray was alert in both directions at the same time, and he already felt that things were tricky in his heart. The Dark Coalition suddenly attacked Magnolia, and that's fine. Even the Light Coalition had traitors. You must have been thinking just now, am I a traitor? Joseph snorted coldly and said, I just took her back at her father's request. Oh, I don't seem to understand from your expression. Don't you know that this little girl is called Lucy Hart? Philia, the eldest lady of the Hatphilia Consortium. What? Sure enough, don't you know? Joseph was stunned, and then his face darkened. HMPH, I knew you didn't understand. I could do it a few days ago, and I still waited until now. So stupid. I thought that Fairy Tale knew Lucy's identity, and it was not easy to kidnap her. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't know these early knowledges, and he could completely take people away without knowing it. B. Meng Shui. Forget it, it's not too late anyway Q_Sean. Tilda. Joseph sneered again, turned around and left with Lucy. Remember to tell Makarov that bastard's revenge at the party that year. I will repay him soon. See. Wait for me. Gray yelled. Ice make ice sword. He condensed a long sword in his hand, then sprinted, came behind Joseph, and cut off at first sight. However, this sword fell on Joseph's body, and before it touched his clothes, it was shattered by a huge magic power. Gray himself was even more impacted by the dark magic power, and the whole figure flew upside down as if being hit by a train. Little devil. Joseph turned back and waited for him, and said sullenly, You two despise Saint Ten. When the gap between mages is too large, the outcome is just a simple comparison of magic power levels. Saying that, he pointed it out. Darkness. Boom. A dark light shot out in an instant. Seeing that Gray was about to be killed, Yin immediately intercepted it in front of him, waving his hand, and patted off the light of darkness. You teach him a lesson. I don't care, you can't do it if you want to kill him. Huh. With a cold snort, Joseph turned and left. Cough cough. Gray coughed again and again, wanting to get up and chase after him. Give it up. With your current strength, you can't beat him with 10. Yin said calmly, however, I can make you stronger. What? Ice Demon Slayer, do you want to learn it? Cathedral of Cartier, top. Uchiha Itachi raised his eyebrows and said softly, family. Under the control of my other gods, it's not bad to be able to bypass the order and do what you want to do. His order is to snipe the high-end combat power of the Bright Alliance. Yin had no way to disobey, nor would he disobey, but while executing the order, he went to see his son by the way. It doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the situation. Thinking of this, he looked down at the church. The soul of the corpse has been defeated, and the entire labor union has more than 30 people, all of which have been defeated. Of course, the Bright Alliance has also paid a heavy price, and both sides are hurt. Seeing this, Uchiha Itachi jumped down immediately. Seeing his appearance, the soul of the corpse was shocked. Dream. They don't know Uchiha Itachi, but they know the dreamy emblem. Compared with the trepidation of the Dark Guild, the two guilds of the Light Coalition army suddenly sank to the bottom. Reinforcement. I'm not a reinforcement. Uchiha Itachi said lightly. I'm just in charge of cleaning the battlefield. As soon as the voice fell, on his Thursday, dozens or hundreds of clones suddenly flashed. Crow clone. Afterwards, these clones locked on their targets one after another, assuming it was transcribing magic. Not all wizards' magic can be transcribed to form mysterious runes. There are more than 50 wizards in 3 guilds, and there are only less than 10 in the end. However, 10 is about the same. Counting the previous 237 reserves, the number of mysterious runes has reached 26. Enough to raise 4 stars. After taking care of the group of people, Uchiha Itachi left immediately and found a corner where no one was around. He transformed himself into the Lord of Elements. Ice in the left hand, flames in the right hand, pure elemental life. The next moment, the Lord of Elements will absorb all the mysterious runes that had been stored before. Of course, a few runes containing the origin of the world remained. Suddenly, a huge mysterious force filled the body, and the Lord of Elements let out a dull low roar. His body of water and fire is undergoing fission. Divided into 2, turned into the Lord of the Fire Element and the Lord of the Tide Element. But it didn't take long for the 2 bodies to divide again and divide into 4. Then came the Earth Element Lord and the Storm Element Lord. The 4 elements shouted in unison, and the roar spread throughout Magnolia. At this moment, magic particles within a radius of 100 miles are madly gathering here, and above the sky, the tide of elements that once appeared, now appears again. However, this time it was bigger and spread farther. In an instant, in every battlefield, the magicians who use the 4 elements magic of earth, water, fire and wind on their SLR cameras were all horrified. They were shocked to find that their magic power began to be restless and uncontrollable. Elements Tides. Chapter 0649-Devil's Abyss. 21st Change. Elemental Lord Atmont, Elemental Life. Star Rating. Ability 1. Control the element of fire. Ability 2. Control the elements of the tide. Ability 3. Control the elements of the earth. Ability 4. Control the elements of the storm. Ability 5. Unlocked. Earth, water, fire, and wind, the 4 powers, represent the 4 most basic elements of nature. When Qin Yang understood the mystery, he felt a burst of surprise in his heart. In this way, Ability 5, I am afraid that it is necessary to determine the water, fire and wind, and create the world. Qin Yang murmured in his heart. This is a guess. The specific reason is unknown if it is less than 5 stars. The master of the 4-star element, to upgrade to 5-star, requires about 40 to 50 mysterious runes. As long as all the 2 major coalition forces are copied once, the goal can be achieved. At this moment, the body of the Lord of Elements is divided into 4 parts, and each body is rapidly absorbing the magic particles in nature. Over Magnolia, a huge elemental tide appeared like a black hole, covering the entire heaven and earth. The wave of elements this time, the scope is 10 times that of the previous one, almost evacuating the magic particles around Magnolia at one time. And as the Lord of Elements continues to absorb magic particles, these 4 bodies are also rapidly expanding. 10 meters, 20 meters in the blink of an eye, the 4 elements have turned into a tall body of 60 to 70 meters. At this moment, the wizards of the coalition forces on both sides could see the figure of the Lord of Elements at a glance, and their expressions were shocked. Impossible. It turned out to be pure elemental life. The magic tide it caused again. Damn it, my magic. It turned out to be elemental life. The closest thing to the essence of magic. Some are angry, some are greedy, and some are frightened. But greed occupies the vast majority. You know, there are only 2 ways that elemental life can be born. The first type is naturally formed. Due to the special environment, such as the Land of Flames, the magic particles are rich, and after countless years, the flame element may be formed. The second type, the abyss-level Great Wizard, was created with powerful magic. But no matter which kind, elemental life is magic itself, and it is the thing closest to the essence of magic. If you get it, you can reach the abyss of magic. Somewhere in town, over the bridge of the river, Joseph, who had just caught Lucy, couldn't help but stare at the Lord of Elements in the distance. In front of him, Gigel dealt with a wizard from the Dark Guild, and then said, "It's become 4. No, the 4 elemental beings are one and the same." Joseph grinned. "It's stronger than the last time. It's hard to say that this elemental life has reached the abyss level and has mastered the earth, water, fire and wind." Speaking of which, he threw Lucy to Gigel and said, "Take her with you to the Hatfilia Consortium and get a reward of 100 million. "What about the war?" Virgil asked suspiciously. "HMPH, it doesn't matter how the two sides fight, whether it is the Dark Council or the Light Alliance, whoever loses and who wins, what does it have to do with us?" Joseph waved his hand and said, "Go quickly." "Yes." Virgil lowered his head without saying a word, turned and dragged Lucy away. He avoided the frontal battlefield, left from the rear of the Coalition of Light, and came to the edge of the town. The next moment, he called out his name, and saw a wisp of black smoke drifting out, turning into a shadow demon. "What's calling me?" The shadow demon glanced at Gigel before looking at Lucy. The little girl was tied into a zongzi, her mouth was taped, and her eyes were both anxious and angrily yearning. "Joseph caught her and asked me to take her to get the commission payment." "She's useless," Shadow Demon said indifferently. Originally, the news of Lucy was told to Joseph in order for him to deal with an attack fairy tale, but later the council formed the Light Alliance, and he immediately organized the Dark Council. In this way, Lucy seemed to be able to do so. Without how to deal with it? Virgil asked respectfully. "Lock it up, I'll take it with me." Saying that, the shadow demon waved his hand, rolled up a thick shadow force, and dragged Lucy into the shadow world. At the same time, the shadow demon also disappeared. "You go undercover. Also, Metalicana, you make a dragon crystal and give it to me." Dragon crystal. In Gigel's body, the iron dragon Metalicana secretly pondered, what is the purpose of dreaming for dragon crystals? It is not easy to make dragon crystals. Just thinking about it, Metalicana's heart moved and said, "Someone is here." The voice fell, and an electric light suddenly fell. The next moment, the electric light flickered, and a man with short blonde hair came out. "You are also the Dark Alliance." Fairy Tale's S-Class Wizard, Laxus. Gigel's eyes narrowed. "I'm not the Dark Alliance, I'm a ghost." "Stop talking nonsense, I heard it." With a snort, Lacasa's whole body flashed with electric light, and the next moment, a thunderlight suddenly burst out, until it went towards Gigel. Seeing this, Gigel grinned and said, "I'll just see, what is the level of Fairy Tale's S rank?" Between the words, he stepped back suddenly and spit at the same time. Roar of the Iron Dragon. Not to mention the fight between the two Dragon Slayer wizards here. Elsewhere, in Central Park, Makarov intercepted the demon's heart. "You are pranked." Makarov looked at the person in front of him in shock. Makarov, the kid back then, has grown to the level of the Holy 10. Hades, Vivi Isho, said, "Go back. Stop joking. You turned out to be a demonic president, what happened?" Makarov shouted angrily. "Why did you, who founded Fairy Tale and led the guild as the second-generation president, become a dark wizard?" "Why, of course it's to step into the abyss of the devil's way." Hades said lightly, "Darkness sky." Puff. A thick dark aura spread out from Hades' feet, like a sky, to devour this area. It was like the big mouth of a dark beast, trying to swallow Makarov in one bite. Seeing this, Makarov's heart sank immediately. Such pure dark magic, the person in front of him is no longer the second-generation president he knew. The realm of light. With a loud roar, Makarov's magic power was sacred, and it immediately spread out, forming a holy enchantment to dispel the darkness. At this moment, 2 holy 10th level magical auras erupted at the same time. It's not just this place that broke out together. The 6 demon generals were also intercepted, and the one who intercepted them was currently the strongest wizard of the Bright Alliance, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Alfheim had his hands on his back and hunched his back. On the old face, the eyelids were drooping, and his eyes penetrated a distance of dozens of meters and fell on Brian. As the leader of the 6 demons, kneel now, and I can give you a chance to repent. At the same time, a guild of the Bright Alliance quietly came to the vicinity of the Lord of Elements. Qinyang controls the body of the 4 elements and continues to absorb the power of the element tide. Suddenly, the 4 elements attracted each other and finally exploded. The earth, water, fire, and wind are chaotic, forming a storm tornado. In the tornado, flames and tides are intertwined. At this moment, the ascension of the Lord of Elements was truly completed. In an instant, a magical aura that far surpassed the Holy 10 enveloped the world. I am the Lord of the Elements. The abyss of the Devil's Way. The sound resounded, spread throughout the city in an instant, and fell precisely into the ears of everyone. Immediately, everyone suddenly changed color. This breath the great wizard of the abyss. Chapter 0650 I am a miracle. An aura of magic that was so huge as to be real, descended on the heads of the coalition forces on both sides. This breath is very thick and sticky, like an ocean of magic power. Under this magic power, every magician feels that his magic power is flowing and jerky. The abyss is the abyss of the Devil's Way. A guild team closest to the Elemental Lord. All members raised their heads and stared blankly at the Elemental Lord as tall as a church building. Today, the body of the Lord of Elements is intertwined with 4 colors, consisting of earthy yellow, fiery red, water blue, and wind blue. The body is like a storm tornado, the arms extending from it are the hands of fire and water, and the core of all power, the heart, in the chest, is wrapped with earth elements. This is definitely an abyss. The guild president's face was as pale as paper, and he immediately shouted, "Go! Run! It's late!" The Lord of Elements stretched out his hand and grabbed it, and the tidal elements swarmed immediately. The magic particles of nature listened to the king's order, and formed a huge palm in the air, which took the entire guild team of more than a dozen people into the palm. I can see that, having mastered the 4 elements of earth, water, fire and wind, I can understand the magic in your body at a glance. The Elemental Lord whispered to himself, this is the essence of magic. 583. It's like a college student doing a question for a primary school student, just take a look and basically get the result. Before, if he wanted to transcribe other people's magic, he needed to constantly observe and analyze it, usually at least 4 or 5 times. But now, there is no need for this. And at a glance, you can see through everything about the other party. The level of magic, the mystery of magic, are all in the insight. Thinking of this, the Lord of Elements stared at the president. The leader of this guild team is a salesman in his 40s, wearing a green hat, a cyan vest, and a magic pendant on his chest. Although he is looking at people, in the eyes of the Lord of Elements, the guild leader has turned into a ray of flame. The flames are burning, symbolizing its enormous magic power. At this moment, this flame, in the violent fluctuation, differentiated into a wisp, interacted with the magic particles of nature, and rapidly increased tenfold. At the same time, the president stretched out his hand and slapped it out. The flaming ball. Boom. The fireball was only the size of a palm at first, but when it flew out, it suddenly expanded to 10 meters. Like a small sun, exuding extremely high temperature. So that's the case, is the basic principle of magic used by mages. The Lord of Elements whispered, the flaming ball. Puff. Above the heads of everyone in the guild, a big fireball was created out of thin air. No, it was a small sun, it was already blazing white, and its volume reached a straight line of 100 meters, which was 10 times that used by the guild leader. Above. Predict. Impossible. 9. President looked horrified. Just take a look, will you? No, this is no longer a level of understanding at a glance, but at a glance, you understand the magic mystery of this move, and using the same move is much stronger than his. Tilde. This is the abyss. The president looked up and watched the white sun go down. He wanted to break free, but the big hand of the water imprisoned them and couldn't escape at all. The next moment, in a dozen pairs of big eyes that stared like copper bells, a fiery white fireball crashed down. Boom! In the loud noise, the white light skyrocketed, engulfing 1/5 of the town at once. The Cathedral of Cardia, near the explosion, turned into ashes in almost a second, evaporated and dissipated. At the same time, all the mages who were fighting, or in a stalemate, looked up one after another. Such a close distance, at most a few kilometers away, can clearly see the huge white sun rising in the corner of the town. Everyone took a deep breath and looked sluggish. After a long time, the white light dissipated, and what appeared in front of everyone was a huge pothole. And the buildings that should have existed before, shops, houses, churches, streets, everything, all turned into ashes. Suddenly, the Lord of Elements moved his body, wrinkled in the breeze, and slowly lifted his body. Abyss. He glanced at the destruction he had caused, and couldn't help but be surprised. It's just an ordinary flame magic, but it has such a strong power. When he moved in his heart, he immediately raised his hand and pressed it. Ka ka ka. The earth shook, the giant pit was filled up in an instant, and one of the buildings rose from the ground. In a short while, the cathedral appeared again. Void creation. The elemental Lord Vivi was startled and murmured, "No, it wasn't created out of thin air, but it still consumed my magic power. Although it's very little, it did consume it." At first glance, if he has this intention, he can create an island in the sea. Unlike Emperor Qin's illusion, the Lord of Elements is a real creation and will not disappear. Interesting, the description of this phantom's ability is too vague, and everything has to be explored by yourself. However, magic is really a miracle, and the master of the elements is the miracle itself. The 4-star elemental master, Qin still can't judge how high his combat power is, but he can instantly kill Saint Ten without any problem. Thinking of this, he felt that the war between the Light Alliance and the Dark Council was unnecessary. The sorcerer who lives in the light, the sorcerer who falls into the darkness, my name is Automont. The voice of the Lord of Elements spread all over the city, and everyone could hear it. Not only that, these voices, under the increase of magic power, even spread thousands of miles. The sound traveled through mountains and rivers, jumped over rivers, and floated across the sky, like a miracle, reaching thousands of miles away. I am the Lord of the Elements, the essence of magic in the world, the abyss of the eternal magic, I am miracle. The sound resounded through the sky. Everyone looked up blankly. 4 heavenly kings, Makarov, Hades, Joseph, Gerald, Brian, Urza, Iron Dragon, Fire Dragon, Poison Dragon, Thunder Dragon. Thousands of eyes converged on the Lord of Elements. What does it want to do? Having absorbed such a huge tide of magic power, its power has reached an incredible level. Is it really an abyss? Hundreds of years, another abyss. The last time, it was the black magician Jerf. This time, it turned out to be an elemental life. Why, the person who reached the abyss is not the light magic world, but the dark magic world every time. This elemental life is made of dreams. Different from the complex emotions of the Light Alliance, the Dark Council, after a brief silence, suddenly shouted. Lord Automont. They retreated steadily, and the more than 30 guilds at the beginning had already destroyed more than half of them. There was a guild that was even wiped out by the Fairy Queen of Fairy Tale alone. In such a bad situation, Dream finally made a move, which immediately made everyone heave a sigh of relief. However, the next sentence of the Lord of Elements suddenly changed the expressions of the members of the Dark Council. I am a miracle, but I do not bring you miracles. The figure of the Lord of Elements shrank, and in the blink of an eye, it had no intention of being the height of an ordinary person. Dark Council, you are so disappointing to Lord Qin Emperor. All of you together are not as good as me. Vivi, the Lord of Elements, raised his hand, and suddenly, a huge water polo appeared above it. The blue water polo is constantly expanding, almost the size of half a city. It is as if a hand is dragging an ocean, which is shocking. Sink into the deep sea and experience the fear. Between the words, he waved his hand and smashed the huge ocean ball down. Chapter-641-Black Dragon Akunorokia. Sink into the deep sea and experience the fear. The huge water ball above the head of the elemental lord slowly smashed down. At the same time as it fell, the water polo exploded, and hundreds of millions of tons of seawater went in all directions. The sea fell from the sky, like a big wave, submerging the city at once. Hundreds of thousands of wizards, whether it is the Light Coalition or the Dark Coalition, all suffered the impact. It is simply huge magic tilde. Wanting to fight against such an intensity of water, trying to use the ordinary fire magic, evaporation, is simply a dream. Gurgle, escape. These seawaters are not ordinary seawater, but pure water magic. Once swallowed, it will be difficult to escape. On the edge of the city, Jijil, who was fighting with Laxus, heard the voice of the Iron Dragon in his heart. What did you say? Jijil paled in shock and said with a shocked face, such a huge amount of water is the embodiment of its magic power. How is it possible? Of course it's not. It's an elemental life, and it has reached the abyss level. It's easy to command the element of water in nature. Metalikana said quickly, hurry away. Human bodies cannot withstand such a huge amount of magic power. Neither can you. Why, if it's just magic? You know you'll die from lack of oxygen, right? In fact, you'll die with oxygen. Same thing, don't ask, run away. Metalikana sighed, it's too late. Boom boom boom. The conversation between the two was going on in their hearts, but everything happened too fast. When Jijil wanted to escape, the sea had already spread from the street. It seemed to be an army of the ocean, and everything that blocked it was instantly flattened. Before they could leave, Jijil and Laxus were engulfed by the sea. PFF'd. When the body was engulfed, Google instantly understood. Pressure, an extremely heavy pressure. It's like a low-level wizard, facing a high-level wizard, can feel the heavy pressure from the opponent. Another example is that the average person is in the deep sea and feels the water pressure enough to crush the chest. Similarly, in this special piece of seawater, Jijil only felt that it was difficult to breathe, and all the magic power was forcibly compressed in the magic vortex within the body. I can't mobilize my magic power. Jijil said hurriedly, Metalikana, what's the situation? Because your magic power is not strong enough, you can't resist the pressure from the outside world. With such a huge pressure, the average person will be unconscious in 3 seconds. If you want to escape, you must at least be at the level of Holy 10, or close to the level of Holy 10. Metalikana said solemnly, attention, I'll help you. Roar. The sound of the dragon's roar resounded, and in an instant, the sea shook, and then a giant steel dragon rushed out of the ocean of water. On top of his dragon head, Jijil breathed heavily, with an expression of the rest of his life. It's terrifying, the magic of pure water. He looked back at Laxus, and Google suddenly shook his head. That guy has rolled his eyes, it seems he passed out. At the same time, the seawater that spread throughout the city began to flow backwards at this moment. They violated the law of gravity and rose from the ground to the sky. Those who ascended together, and the hundreds of wizards who were engulfed by the sea, sank to the bottom of the water and were taken to the sky together. And then, hundreds of millions of tons of seawater floated above the sky, forming an empty sea. It's really spectacular. The Master of Elements stared at the ocean and counted the number silently. 1469 people. No, 1468 people. Just after he finished speaking, another dragon roar came, and the fire dragon Agunir broke free from the ocean of water. You're going too far. Igneel flapped his wings and said, "Natsu, are you all right?" Cough cough cough. His back, Natsu's face was pale, and he coughed repeatedly. I almost thought I was going to die. When I couldn't break free, I wanted to swallow the sea water in one breath. Swallow it and you'll blow up. The Lord of Elements chuckled and said, "Dragon-slaying magic can't swallow this magic power." At this moment, Tai Long flew over and said, "What do you want to do? To do such a thing with pure water magic? What? Isn't that obvious?" The Lord of Elements said indifferently, "Of course it is screening. The 1468 people floating in this empty sea are all mages." Hearing this, Tai Long was shocked, and then confirmed that it was exactly what the other party said. Not a single ordinary person. You must know that although the war has opened a long world, there are still many ordinary people who have not had time to escape. And the number is far more than that of mages. In this sea of water, mages can be screened out, while ordinary people are spared. It turns out that ordinary people can't feel that pressure, and even if they are swallowed, they won't be taken to the sky. Iron Dragon's heart was awe-inspiring, and he couldn't help but say, "Then, you screened out these mages. There are allied forces of light, some allied forces of darkness, and even other mages living in Magnolia. What do you want to do?" "Who knows?" The Lord of Elements did not answer, but looked at the sky higher. "It's all your fault for running out and attracting that guy." "That guy?" Agunye's eyes flashed, and he also looked up. At the end of the endless sky, among the white clouds, a pair of dark wings loomed. Roar! The sound of the dragon's roar came, and it seemed extremely angry. Akunologia. Iron Dragon's tone sank, and anger flashed in the dragon's eyes. "It wasn't our breath that attracted it," Ignir said. "It should be the breath of death that attracted it." The black dragon in the Book of Apocalypse, Akunorokia, whenever he appears, it means the end of an era. And every time it appears, it is because of a large number of killings. Therefore, the Book of Revelation records that a large amount of dead energy will lead to disasters and bring black dragons down. Whoosh! The dark wings broke the white clouds and descended on the sky above the sea. Those malicious eyes swept across the fire dragon, then over the iron dragon, and finally on the Lord of Elements. Pause slightly. "I didn't expect that you were still lingering on." The black dragon spit out human words, opened its huge mouth, and gathered dark energy. "Let me send you to another world." Boom! The roar of the black dragon, a beam of dark light, suddenly burst out. "You're tired of shooting at my material." The Lord of Elements snorted coldly, raised his hand in a blow, and waved it away. Earth, water, fire, wind, purgatory broken. Boom! As the bell rang, in an instant, a magic circle comparable to most of the city suddenly opened. The next moment, purgatory shattered and started, and the darkness quickly radiated away like ripples. Abyss. Hailong's pupils shrank, and his heart was shocked. Chapter 0652-Judgment of the Elements. The first update. Tilda just got home. Sorry for the late update. Abyss. The black dragon Akunorokia, his evil eyes locked on the Lord of the Elements. From a long distance before, I sensed the breath of a magical abyss, and even a sound, which ran through thousands of miles and spread all over the place. It was you. Hailong fluttered his wings, his eyes sharp. And in the inner thinking, the confrontation between the two sides has already started. The roar of the black dragon turned into a beam of light and bombarded in front of the magic circle, but the purgatory was broken by four basic elements: earth, water and fire. The two forces had the same level of destructive power, and they suddenly fell into a stalemate. The empty sea. Gerald saw this scene through the sea water, and his heart was shocked. The same purgatory is broken, stronger than what I used, and the structure is more stable. Without blinking, he watched both sides. Although he was in the sea of magic, there was constant terrifying pressure around him, as if he was in the deep sea. But for him, it is not enough to fall into a coma. However, he was not in a hurry to rush out. The elemental life in the outside world was too strong, and rushing out was courting death. It seems that if you want to get their resurrection technique, it's a bit difficult to force it. Gerald remembered Lou Daoben, the more terrifying guy. We have to find a way. At the same time, there were still many powerful wizards who remained awake. Even Ulu and Ulusha are in the empty sea. These wizards who were close to the Holy Ten, or reached the Holy Ten, all watched the battle above the empty sea, and they were very tacit with each other, and none of them went out. At this time, the two sides of the battle finally stopped after a stalemate for a minute. A bang! Above the sky, the shattered magic circle of purgatory exploded, and the dark fluctuations and the roar of the black dragon cancelled each other out, setting off thick smoke. The power of these two, even time and space are distorted. In the smoke and dust, the electric light flickered, and the power of mutual annihilation was slowly dissipating. As expected of the King of Dragons, he can shatter my purgatory. The Lord of Elements thought calmly, it's a pity that it's only 4-star, it's more troublesome to defeat this black dragon. Seeing this, Ignil said to Natsu on his back, Natsu, stay away, that is the black dragon, the evil standing on the top of the dragon. It will be difficult for me to take care of you when we fight later. As he said that, his wings twitched, and he discarded Natsu and threw it all the way. Gurgel, you go too. The same is true for Metalicana. Both dragons chose to throw their dragon slayers far away. The next moment, the two giant dragons looked at each other, then rushed into the smoke and dust, flew into the twisted center of power, penetrated, and launched an attack on the black dragon above. Cut! Roar of the fire dragon. Roar of the iron dragon. Two dragon breaths burst out in an instant, intersecting with each other, turning into the roar of Yan Tilong. Qian. The lost dog. The black dragon's eyes were sharp, but there was no confrontation between the two dragons. The pitch-black wings shook and turned into a black streamer, which was instantly avoided. He was on guard against the Lord of Elements and did not dare to reveal his flaws. The last time he was ripped off by Deathwing, it was the result of underestimating others. He would not make the same mistake again. It's prudent and smart. The Lord of Elements shook his head and said, Agunir, Metalicana, you hold him first, don't let him run away. As he spoke, his body flew above the empty sea and floated on the sea. It's a little troublesome for a 4-star to catch a black dragon, but it doesn't matter, there are so many materials here, it can be upgraded to a 5-star. Come out, I know this won't hold you back. As soon as the voice fell, bang bang bang. A dozen figures sprang from the sea. The 5 Holy Tens of the Light Alliance, as well as many people whose magic power is close to the Holy Ten, as well as the Dark Council, Hades, Brian, Blue Knot, the 6 Demon Generals, the 7 Dependents of Purgatory, and others. Everyone rushed out to face the Lord of Elements. President, this guy even wants to kill us. Blue Knot's tone implied anger. What kind of Dark Council? They designed it temporarily, in order to use us as cannon fodder. Hearing this, Hades was silent, and glanced at the 6 demon generals. Those people seemed to be in a state of embarrassment, and they all looked bad. Obviously, the 6 demon generals were even more annoyed that Dream had abandoned them directly. Suddenly, one of the 4 heavenly kings, Alfheim, said, You too, in this case, why don't we join forces? This elemental life has no chance of winning one-on-one. To join forces with your light wizards. Hades sneered. Stop dreaming. He. Light laughter came, and the Master of Elements faced more than a dozen people and said, Come on together, I have limited time, and I will solve you as soon as possible. It probably angered many people. Immediately, whether it was the Light Coalition Army or the Dark Council, they all started. Rock iron powder explosion. The 10th of the 10th Saint, Jura pointed with 2 fingers, and shouted, Let's do it together. As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, countless pieces of rock were like bullets, pouring out very densely towards the Lord of Elements. At the same time, Makarov raised one hand high, and in an instant, the magic of light gathered into a ball. Rain of light. Whoosh whoosh. Within the ball of light, countless light bombs flew out. 7-star sword. With a wave of Gerald's hand, celestial magic was born. Super gravity ball. Chong and Fantasia. Amaterasu Hayakushu. The roar of the earth. Tower of the Empire. Roar of Vulcan. In an instant, more than a dozen types of super powerful magic appeared one after another, and such a huge amount of magic power gathered together in an attempt to wipe out the Lord of Elements with one blow. Of course, in the midst of this, President Joseph fled for the first time. If the number of people is useful, why is the abyss of the devil called the abyss? At the moment when everyone launched the attack, he turned around and fled, moving extremely fast, and didn't want to shoot at all. At this time, no one is interested in caring about him. He. The Lord of Elements laughed loudly. His right hand was red, his left was blue water, and he drew a circle in front of him with his hands up and down. A song of water and fire, a roar of ice and fire. Boom. Suddenly, two diametrically opposed magic powers entangled with each other, turned into a shock, and hit 1.9 in an instant. What? Alfheim's expression did not change. It turned out to be a magical fusion. But this didn't end. At the moment when the ice and fire roared, the Lord of Elements slapped his palms. Snapped. With a light sound, in an instant, the four elements merged and chaos was born. Between his palms, the magic of chaos formed a spherical state, releasing thousands of radiance. This is, Makarov waited, his eyes widened, and murmured incredulously, impossible. It's this, impossible. The Lord of Elements snorted coldly, yours is the law of the fairies. Then, this is called the trial of the elements. Between the words, the earth, water, fire, wind, and the ball of mixing suddenly expanded, filling the entire sky in an instant. In an instant, everyone fell into a flawless white. Super magic. Chapter 0653_rolling. Judgment of the Elements. This is super magic. Super magic, with much stronger power than ordinary magic, is known as super advanced magic. Every super magic has a similar feature, that is, the consumption of magic power is far more than that of ordinary magic. But at this moment, the consumption of super magic used by the Master of the Elements is far more than that of ordinary super magic. If it is said that the law of the fairy, the consumption of magic is 10, then the consumption of the judgment of the elements is 100. The difference of more than 10 times the magic power brings more powerful power. In an instant, above the sea of empty, all the magicians who shot were caught in a white light. Within the horizon, everything disappears, only white fills the eyeball. Everyone's feelings are separate, yet the same. In the whiteness, everyone was shocked to find that the magic vortex in their bodies was frozen, as if the whole nature was suppressing him, and it was the magic elements that were angry and repelling them. What will happen to the sorcerer if he loses his magic power? The voice of the Lord of Elements sounded, it's like humans need oxygen to maintain themselves, and mages need magic power. Without magic power, they will get sick, and if they are serious, they will die. With his voice, everyone's faces turned blue. The magic elements of the whole world are repelling them, their magic cannot be separated from the body, and it is even more difficult to interact with the magic particles of nature. It's as if people can't breathe, and at this moment, they are in a similar situation. One by one, their faces became ashen, and a lack of magic power began to appear. After a long time, when the white light dissipated, the magicians who had shot before fell into the sea one by one and floated on the sea. Everyone's face is similar, and their breathing is extremely heavy. This is your elemental trial. Makarov clutched his chest and breathed heavily. Isn't it interesting? This magic is the fairy law you learned. The mystery of magic is figured out, just like a mathematical formula, and it is correct. However, unlike your fairy law, that magic is the spirit of annihilating the enemy, and the element judgment is aimed at the magic vortex in your body, which is the source of magic, and the magicians who have lost their magic are no different from weak chickens. Quote. The Lord of Elements talked eloquently and stepped on the sea. Is this the abyss? Makarov murmured desperately. This is the abyss. Isho, the Lord of Elements, said, if you don't believe me, you can ask the developer, that is, your first-generation president. What she first mastered was not the law of fairies, but the law of darkness. Or, you can ask your side Hades, the false abyss, could develop demon laws against you. After a pause, he said playfully, of course, if I want, I can immediately use the law of the god of fire, the law of the sea god, the law of the earth, the law of the storm. As for the abyss, knowing the only magic, the word only magic does not refer to a specific magic, but can quickly understand the mystery of each magic. Of course, there is a little hidden here. The general abyss is afraid that it cannot do the Lord of Elements. The reason why the Lord of Elements can be done is because he is the magic itself, the life of the elements. And hearing this, everyone became more and more desperate. There is such a big gap between the abyss and the general Holy 10 magic guides. In an instant, a dozen people were wiped out. The 10th juror turned into an ice sculpture. Gerald, sealed by clods. The 7 family members of Purgatory fell into a coma. The 6 magic generals are all in a state of lack of magic power. The only people who can keep calm are the 2 of them. Hades and Alfheim, the 2 of them somehow resisted the trial of the elements. You 2 are very good, and it's surprising that you can compete with super magic. The Lord of Elements turned his eyes and looked at the 2 who could still use magic power. At this moment, a magic power suddenly broke out, breaking the seal of the elemental trial. Huh. Looking around, I saw the pattern on Brian's face, the leader of the 6 demon generals. His eyes were blood red, and his magic power was swimming wildly, and the whole person slowly floated up from the sea. Have all the 6 demons been killed? Ha ha ha, I have to thank you. I'm out again. Brian's tone was frantic, looking extremely manic and full of madness. Is Lee a personality? The Lord of Elements looked at each other calmly. I liberated you, how should you thank me? Humph. Brian snorted coldly and said, my name is, no, the president of the 6 demons. I am only interested in destruction. As a thank you, let me destroy your body. Between the words, he stretched out a finger, always obliterate. At his fingertips, the dark magic power gathered, and a large amount of darkness shot out in an instant. Seeing this, Hades and Alfheim glanced at each other, and the 2 started at the same time in tacit understanding. In such a situation, let this idiot attract hatred first, and they are ready to make big moves to solve each other. Hades, palms met, his own magic power broke through the elemental judgment, and began to resonate with the wrinkled magic power. The Book of Jeff, Chapter 4, Paragraph 12, Forbidden Magic Divine Punishment. Woo-hoo. The whimper of the devil resounded like a ghost. In the void, the magic power gathered, and a strange-shaped devil was born. The number was changed to 10 to 100, and in a short period of time, hundreds of void demons were born. Every demon is an aggregate of magic power, and its body is pitch black, as if it came from the abyss. He is expected of the strongest ones, even abyss-level magic can be used. Unfortunately, you, the demon created by the pseudo-abyss, is not even as good as Daliola. The Lord of Elements couldn't help laughing. He followed the example, put his palms together, and the 413 magic resonated. Void creation elemental life. As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, a roar came from the void. The element of fire. Puff. A wisp of quiet fire was born, and then quickly turned into a flame element. Then, in the empty sea, the entire empty sea came to life and turned into marine elements. The wind in the sky danced and turned into a hurricane element. Magnolia's earth shook, and from the center of the city, under the earth, a behemoth with a body of 100 meters slowly drilled out and stood up. Earth element. How is that possible? Hades' expression was horrified. Imitate me. Just watch it once. He learned this trick at the beginning, but it took countless years. As a result, it was only used, and the other party could learn it in an instant. What's impossible? The Lord of Elements said with a low smile. When a person begins to step into the realm of magic, it is like standing on a cliff and falling from the cliff. The more profound the cultivation of magic, the closer to the dark abyss. I stand in the abyss and look at you, and you can see everything clearly. Saying that, he waved. Solve them, the 4 elements. These are the real 4 elements, not the 4 sorcerers of the Spectre Dominators. They are elemental beings, created by the magic of the abyss. At this moment, the earth element stretched out his hand, his huge palm, and slapped dozens of demons with one slap. Chapter 0654 The elemental vortex sweeping the continent. Open black lens bracket. The third update tilde it's late. Sorry tilde close black lens bracket. Roar. The earth element is roaring, standing like a giant. It stretched out a big hand, covering the sky and sun, slapped it with a slap, and instantly slapped a dozen demons into powder. Seeing this, Hades was shocked and laughed madly. The abyss of the devil's way. He knows all magic. This is the abyss, ha ha ha. From the calm surface of the empty sea, a water column gushed out, swallowing Hades in an instant, trapping it in the center like a sealed water polo. The flame element opened its mouth and rolled up the burning flames, annihilating dozens of demons in an instant. The storm element set off the wind blade, and countless sharp blades slashed the demons, such as shredding melons. In the blink of an eye, the 100 demons created by Hades were cleaned up. The next moment, the 4 elements shot at the same time, and they all hit Alfheim. Faced with such an attack, this one of the 4 heavenly kings seemed very calm. Fighting is definitely impossible. The opponent is an abyss. Creating a few elemental lives is enough to give him a headache. Since this is the case, we can only find a way to delay the time. The Black Dragon and the Dream have a grudge. As for the rescue of the many mages who were sealed in the empty sea, this idea was immediately abandoned by him. It's not that he can't do it, but what if he is rescued? In the face of such a strong man, the number of people is meaningless. Thinking of this 550, he let out a roar, and the whole person grew from a short old man to a savage human-shaped beast. Roar. Receive magic, the strongest creature. However, at the moment of incarnation, Alfheim did not fight at all, but jumped out of the city. The attack of the 4 elements failed, and without any hesitation, they immediately chased after them. For a short while, there was only one person left. Noah's face was ashen, and he realized that the Lord of Elements in front of him was much more terrifying than he imagined. Just you. Wait. Wu quickly raised his hand. I have no intention of being an enemy of you. The dominance of this continent can be handed over to you. Mainland dominance. Isn't your purpose to seize the status of the magic world? To replace the Senate? Who told you it was just to fool you? The Lord of Elements sneered. I am waiting for dominance, and I have no interest at all. Moreover, even if you kill all of you here, what will you do? This is just the Kingdom of Fury, a permanent neutral country with a population of 1,700, the entire Ishgar continent. There are too many such countries. Moreover, there are about 500 guilds in the entire continent, and there are only 30 here. If a few regular guilds really want to seize the dominance, the next time they will face wizards, they will be dozens, hundreds of times as many as they are now. Quote. This is not to say that he is afraid of the regular guild, but it is too troublesome. He only needs the dominance of the mysterious rune. V. For now, the biggest purpose is to upgrade the Lord of Elements to 5 stars. _pen_. The nonsense is over, you also hurry up and donate your magic. The Lord of Elements laughed and immediately reached out. The tide of the left hand, the element of water turns into ice, and even the atmosphere can be frozen. You bastard. Wu was very angry, his magic power exploded, his hands controlled the darkness, and he drew a circle in the air. This inverted circle distorted the space and opened the door to a different world. Open it, the door of ghost crying. Above his head, time and space twisted like a spiral, and a gate was connected in the center. Devour your memory, body, magic, everything, eat you, I am the abyss. Wu did not keep any hands, all his own magic power was injected, Genesis Wu. In an instant, the tyrannical force of sucking and swallowing enveloped the Lord of Elements, as if to swallow him completely. Qinyang found that his phantom body was being absorbed. The world changes, this is a space of nothingness, there is nothing, there is no concept of time and space, everything is chaos. The surroundings were blood-colored and hazy, making it difficult to see clearly. It's kind of interesting. It's similar to the anti-membrane bandit in the world of death, which can exile objects. This is probably some kind of different space. Qinyang calmly wiped the surroundings, showing great interest. Without time and space, even thinking becomes slow, and if you were an ordinary person, you might sink. However, it's too easy to destroy this fragile alien space. Thinking of this, Qinyang controlled the Lord of Elements and burst out his own magic in an instant. Boom! The huge magic power, like substance, and like the ocean, can easily fill this different space. Just like a water glass, when it is full of water, continue to pour into it, and soon it will reach a critical point. Outside, there was no chattering laughter. Even if it is an abyss, it cannot escape Genesis. When I absorb this elemental life, I will be a new depth. However, his words were not finished. The sound of clicking sounded, as if the glass cracked and the sky shattered. Boom! A huge magic power came in an instant. Wu's complexion changed greatly, and his heart was horrified. The next moment, the gate of Ghost Cry was like a multi-bone Nomi card. A chain reaction occurred, and it exploded immediately. Impossible. It exploded with magic power. What level of magic power is this? Wu couldn't believe that the gate of Ghost Crying, which even 10,000 wizards could not break, was smashed by the opponent with pure magic power. At this moment, a spear of 4 elements shot out of the door in an instant. Puff! A shot like a dragon, instantly pierced through Wu's Shang chamber. Then, the Lord of Elements slowly flew out. He looked at the non-frozen expression, and immediately smiled. Interesting magic, I accept it. However, looking at your expression, it seems incomprehensible. Why do I have such a deep magic? There is such a huge abyss level. Magic power. Compared to yours, my magic power is dozens of times. Quote. Hearing this, Wu's pupils shrank, then slackened, and the whole person fell down to Kong Hai. Seeing this, the Master of Elements shook his head. It's finally solved. Now, let's transcribe the magic. With a wave of his hand, he controlled Kong Hai and brought up the body of a magician. Directly transcribe the mysterious rune, and after that, throw the person back into the sea. This action only takes a few seconds. In just a short while, all the mages were screened. Although not everyone can transcribe the mysterious runes, the number of more than 1,000 people still allowed Qinyang to obtain more than 120 mysterious runes. However, the mysterious energy contained in these mysterious runes is not as good as before, but it is more than enough to increase the star rating. Snapped. In an instant, Qinyang exploded half of the mysterious runes, and a huge mysterious force poured into his body. The next moment, above the sky, the elemental tide was born again. This has been the case 3 times. For the first time, the elemental tide enveloped a radius of 10 miles. The second time, it was Bailey. However, this time, the vortex that appeared in the sky spread thousands of miles. And the scale of its tides swept the entire Ishgar continent. At this moment, the entire continent, hundreds of millions of human beings, raised their heads one after another. The sky suddenly became dark, and the magic particles in nature, as if ordered by the king, were heading towards the kingdom of fury, towards Magnolia. Even, this time the tide has spread to another continent. it crossed the ocean and swept to the western continent. Impossible. This breath. In a palace on the western continent, a beautiful woman with long hair stared blankly at the sky above the sea. Chapter 0655-Suppress the Black Dragon. There are two continents in this world. A continent is called Ishgar, and the Kingdom of Fury is a sea country located in Ishgar. To the west of the Kingdom of Fury is the vast ocean, and after crossing the sea and heading west, you can reach a new continent. The name of the new continent is West Continent, and there is a huge magic military empire on that continent. It was formed by 730 guilds, and among the tens of thousands of mages, 12 stood out. These 12 people has a strength comparable to, or in other words, surpassing the strength of Serena. And the name of this empire is Alvarez Empire. Today, the Lord of Elements has been upgraded from 4-star to 5-star, causing a tide of elements in a radius of thousands of miles. It is like a typhoon vortex that spreads over half of the country, attracting the attention of countless people, especially Fiore's royal family. And because of such a huge elemental tide, this special wave swept across and enveloped the entire Ishgar continent. Even because of Fiore's geographical location, the westernmost part of this wave has penetrated the ocean and spread to the western continent, arrived at the Alvarez Empire. At this moment, in a palace somewhere in the empire, a beautiful woman with long crimson hair raised her head in a daze, and whispered softly in her mouth. The aura of this magical power is the abyss. On Ishgar's side, a great wizard of the abyss level appeared. This is not good news. Originally, we got information that the magical power of the Magic Council was damaged. As long as we confirm this news is true, we can start the war again, but now there is an abyss that is the same realm as your majesty. Quote. The person who spoke was an old man with a pair of eyes, calm and gloomy. Nonsense, who is his majesty, a wizard who has just arrived in the abyss, how can he be compared with his majesty? Another humane. What do I do now? Send someone to inquire about the information. Speaking of which, hasn't that guy from the gods been in Ishgar all the time? Contact him and ask him to find out. Actually, I've been trying to communicate with magic since just now, but there seems to be no response. Is it because the distance is too far? Or, is that guy dead? Although the gods are not the strongest, they are not weak. In Ishgar, they are known as the head of the 4 kings. Who can kill him? Several more people approached the hall and spoke one after another. These people are the strongest among the tens of thousands of wizards, known as the 12 Shields of the Holy Protector. I'll go to the eastern continent to see. At this time, the previous woman with long hair in red said softly, by the way, I will meet this new abyss for a while. That's the abyss, Aaron, you better be careful. The newly promoted abyss can't kill me. Between the words, the crimson long-haired woman named Irene had disappeared into the hall. 1 foot at the same time, the magical tide swept over half of the world to an. At its center, the Lord of the Elements is changing. 7. He used to look like an elemental body, but at this moment, his appearance is gradually approaching that of human beings. Infinite elemental power poured in, deconstructing his elemental body and recasting a new body. Just like dragon sucks water from the element height above the sky, a small tornado is linked down and injected into the body of the Lord of Elements. At the same time, the information about this phantom body changed in his mind. 21st change, Lord of the Elements Atmont. Star rating. Ability 1, control the element of fire. Ability 2, control the elements of the tide. Ability 3, control the elements of the earth. Ability 4, control the elements of the storm. Ability none, elemental plane. The newly born ability is called the elemental plane. Qinyang quickly understood the meaning of it, and it was almost as expected. After he fully mastered the earth, water, fire, and wind, he would naturally be able to determine the 4 elements of the cauldron and create the world. However, this world is not the material world, but the element world. No, it cannot even be called a world, but a plane. Create a plane suitable for the birth of elemental life. As long as it is created, it will not be long before endless elemental life is born. Let's call it the Element Army. The Sea Dragon has a Sea Beast army. The Lich King has an army of undead. Deathwing has a giant dragon army. And now, there is another elemental army. However, it takes a little time to create the elemental plane. Now, let's absorb the elemental tide first. Thinking of this, Qin was in control of the elemental lord and was about to absorb the huge elements above the sky, but suddenly found that the three-headed giant dragon's fight made the sky dark and shattered. The black dragon tore off one of the iron dragon's wings, leaving a scratch in front of the fire dragon's Shang 2-1 or so miserable, the same giant dragon, the difference in strength is not small. Just as he was talking, the black dragon roared, shot down the iron dragon, and fell towards this side. A dark breath pushed the iron dragon to the ground. Tai Long let out a scream, a shrill dragon roar, one of his wings was torn apart. How miserable it was. For the sake of you all trying to help me drag my time. Qin shook his head and raised his hand to roll up a storm. Tai Long was rescued. Thank you, Metallicana said gruffly, the wound was still bleeding, this guy is stronger than 400 years ago. It's just a small injury. Qin said, summon King Feng. Puff. A ray of phoenix fire flew out, and then reborn from the ashes, turning into a golden phoenix. The phoenix uttered the sound of a phoenix roar, flapped its wings, and projected colorful lights. The rainbow light heals all diseases and pains. The broken wing of the irradiated Metallicana has stopped bleeding in a short time, and then begins to grow. This, Metallicana said in shock, it has such a strong recovery ability, this phoenix. Pay attention to the words, that is the master of my life. At the same time, the fire dragon and the black dragon, who were still fighting, both stopped and cast their gazes. They saw the existence of Ho-Oh at a glance. Hailong squinted his eyes and said, what are you? In this regard, Ho-Oh disdains the dialogue and ignores it. The black dragon was furious, bypassing the fire dragon, and was about to launch a surprise attack on the king. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was a man in a white 2.5 Void Knight Palace suit with a slight smile on his face. The moment he saw this person, Hailong's heart was shocked, and he felt a little palpitations from the other side. Who are you? He suddenly stopped and turned to run away. Your appearance is an unexpected joy. If I want to suppress you quickly, I can only do it myself. Aizen chuckled lightly and punched out. Boom! With a dull sound, the sky shattered with a punch. The shattered vacuum spread rapidly, and when he was hit by a punch, Hailong's entire body suddenly spurted blood, and even fell weakly downward. Impossible. You, he turned around in shock. Who are you? I'm probably God to you. Aizen stood in the void, staring at the fallen Akunorokia, Reaper, Aizen, Dream Deputy Leader. Chapter 0656-Suppression of Black Dragons 2. The second and third shifts are a little later, about 1:30 Hollow Square O. I'm probably a god to you guys. Aizen stood in the void, stared at the black dragon, and said softly, I am a death god, Aizen Sosuke, Dream Vice President. Hailong donated blood and sprayed wildly. He was hit by the blow of the smashing vacuum, and his dragon scales were shattered, making it difficult to resist. In the shrill roar of pain, his huge dark body fell towards the town. The fire dragon and iron dragon on the side were full of shock and widened their dragon eyes, with a ghostly expression on their faces. How is it possible this is a black dragon? The guy who killed all the dragons 400 years ago. The punch just now actually severely injured the black dragon in an instant. This is the strength of the vice president. The two giant dragons are difficult to calm down. If it is said that the strength of the Dream Master is understandable and is still in a very powerful concept, then the power displayed by Aizen at this moment has subverted their worldview. Dragon itself is a race standing at the top of the world, and the black dragon is the king of dragons, killing tens of thousands of dragons. However, such a powerful person who had already reached the abyss and saw through the essence of magic was beaten to death with a single punch. So horrible. This is just the vice president. Very far away from Magnolia, on the top of a high mountain, a woman with two horns and a graceful figure had the same look of surprise. It shattered the sky with one punch, and the black dragon was seriously injured by one blow. What kind of monster is it? Her name is Sarah, and her title is Liang Tianyu. Because Yin lost contact, she took the initiative to investigate the situation. She is not a human herself, but a demon, the top demon in human form. It's no wonder that you dare to call yourself the most vicious and evil in history. This kind of terrifying guild is indeed worthy of this title. First, it was an abyss-level element life, and now the vice chairman has surpassed the abyss. Above the abyss or the end of the abyss. Sarah murmured, and her delicate face was extremely tangled. It's not easy to take silver away. If I'm not careful, I'll be caught. This is troublesome. Not to mention her thoughts. Over Magnolia, the black dragon fell and smashed a building. His mind was trembling, and there was an uncontrollable trace of fear. He has always been at the pinnacle of everything. Today, he was seriously injured by a punch. It is impossible for him to recover within a few months. This guy is also a dream, just like that big chin. These guys are definitely not from this era, and even they are not from this world. The black dragon's eyes flickered, struggling, dragging his broken body, trying to escape quickly. Do you think you can still run? Just stay. Eisen whispered in his mouth. 63 binding roads, chains and chains. Whoosh whoosh. 4 chains that flickered with platinum light, as thick as Orochi, twisted and twisted, fell from the sky, and were bound tightly by the black dragon who wanted to escape. Damn it! What is this? Hailong opened his fangs and gritted his teeth on the chain, but it was difficult to shake. This chain seemed to imprison the dragon's soul, and he was severely injured, completely unable to move. The next moment, Eisen stretched out his hand and pointed. 30 Dao binding mouth flashes 3 times. Whoosh whoosh. Another 3 rays of platinum radiance shone, and the huge pointed beak-shaped speed of light fell from the sky, slamming through the black dragon and imprisoned it on the ground. The wings and the dragon's head were nailed to the ground, only the dragon's tail could barely move. Roar. The black dragon roared angrily, opened its mouth, and gathered dark forces. You still want to smash the ground with dragon breath? You really don't give up. Lan Ran raised her eyebrows and whispered. The wall of iron sand, the tower in the shape of a monk, and the glowing iron glow. Because of their determination, they are silent. Boom. Above the sky, 5 huge iron pillars suddenly fell and smashed onto the black dragon. A suppression of the dragon head, making it difficult to open your mouth. Use the dragon's breath. 2 to suppress the dark wings, 1 to fix the dragon's spine, and 1 to break the dragon's tail. Under the 5 pillars of complete singing, the black dragon could no longer move, and was fixed in the center of Magnolia like a dead dog. Seeing this, the fire dragon and the iron dragon were already frightened, and the 2 giant dragons looked at each other and felt great terror. Such a powerful black dragon, in front of this vice president, was like a baby, and was suppressed by turning his hands. I have met President Chin Di once. Suddenly, Huolong said, I was easily defeated when I was invited to join the giant dragon army. However, at that time, he could resist. Now it seems that people are not serious at all. Even the vice president can easily suppress the black dragon. If the president wants to deal with him, it will be easier. Hearing this, Tai Long nodded towards Feng Wang, expressing his gratitude. His broken wing had been healed and returned to normal. He approached the Fire Dragon King and said in dragon language, Their master, Deathwing, I have seen, is an ancient dragon. But the rest, I don't think they are from this era, or even not from this world. Quote. Not this world. Can this world breed such a powerhouse that subverts imagination? The 2 dragons fell silent for a while. So, They want to form a giant dragon army. I seem to understand, the Fire Dragon King murmured. But 270, now that the Black Dragon is suppressed, what is our hard work and perseverance over the past 400 years? For them, the great crisis of extinction and their private hatred are just a matter of turning over to dream. The goal that he had always insisted on disappeared, which made the two dragons a little dazed and blinded. What to do next? Not to mention their thoughts, after suppressing the Black Dragon, the Lord of Elements stopped paying attention and continued to absorb the tide of elements. Aizen, on the other hand, walked away, walking in the sky, as if walking on the ground. He walked in front of the Black Dragon and looked at him. You are very good. You are obviously a dragon slayer and a human, but when you turn into a dragon, you have the power to surpass all dragons. The Black Dragon's chin was pressed against the ground, and an iron pillar was pressed on top of his head, so he couldn't even open his mouth. Our Deathwing, have you seen it? Aizen chuckled and said, he has a giant dragon army under his command, which is a battle force that we are about to build in our dreams. Now, I will give you two choices. Speaking of this, Lan Ran paused, and then said, first, be sealed by me, suppressed, and then find a time to erase your consciousness and make it into a puppet dragon. Although puppet, it will probably make your strength decline. For a second, it should be no problem to keep 70% to 80%. As for the second, Aizen stretched out her second finger and said indifferently, submit and join the giant dragon army. Chapter 0657 _ The way to hit 6 stars. The third update tilde I fell asleep, but fortunately I woke up, otherwise I would have to delay it until morning, sweat. Submit, or be made into a puppet. Hearing the choice given by Aizen, Hailong said nothing, his eyes fixed on the other side. It's not that he doesn't want to talk, it's that he can't even speak. However, even though there was no verbal conversation, Aizen could still see some meaning in the eyes of the other party. Are you unconvinced? You are indeed very powerful. If you want to ensure that you can deal with you foolproof, we must also use the master on our side. The reason why I do it myself is, on the one hand, to make a quick decision. On the other hand. Saying that, Aizen stretched out her hand and pressed it towards Hailong's head in the air. My power is to interfere and let things develop in the direction I want. For example, I can now interfere with your dragon transformation, and make you degenerate into human form. Between the words, a strange force suddenly enveloped the Black Dragon. His pupils shrank suddenly, and the peculiar power in his body was restraining his dragon transformation. If the dragon transformation was likened to a flame, then this power was a pot of water, poured directly on it, and extinguished the flame. Akunorokia's huge body radiated dark light, and then quickly shrank. In the blink of an eye, it has turned into a human form. A black dragon in human form, with a dark color, an African-like complexion, a dragon pattern on the skin, a long white hair, draped around the waist, a black cloak, a naked upper body, and a string of blue hooks. Like necklace. My power. He was lying on the ground with chains bound around his body. These white gold chains shrunk as he shrunk. Do you understand? Aizen retracted his right hand and said, I will make you into a puppet. Doing it or not doing it is only in my mind. I will give you 3 seconds to think about it, surrender, or become a puppet. 3. His interference power can even interfere with the past and the future, not to mention a black dragon. It's easy to wash out the memory and personality of the opponent directly and replace it with a puppet who only knows how to fight. Hearing this, Hailong immediately lowered his head and said in a cold voice, if you want me to surrender, yes. Your power is stronger, and the strong dominate the weak, of course. The underlying line is, when you have more power, can you control me in turn? Aizen Vivi Isho said, although that kind of thing is impossible. But you are too rebellious. It is more convenient to wash your memory and personality. Saying that, he placed a palm on the top of the other's head. The next moment, the interference force directly poured into the opponent's brain, easily breaking through the black dragon's consciousness. Wait, wait. Akunorokia was shocked and wanted to dodge, but the chain bound the dragon's soul, and then a huge force shattered his consciousness. His voice stopped abruptly, and his eyes turned from vicious, angry, flustered, anxious, to dull. His eyes were slack and powerless, like a puppet. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to observe other people's memories, otherwise it would be better to revise the memory. But, forget it, the puppet is a puppet, at least it is much stronger than ordinary dragons. Shaking his head, Aizen stopped. Immediately afterwards, Akunorokia, whose memory was washed away and whose personality was erased, slowly stood up. His face is expressionless, not the kind of expressionless human beings, but he really has no emotions, just like a machine. It's over. The Lord of Elements has reached 5 stars, and there are more than 60 mysterious runes. Among them, there are more than 10 runes containing the origin of the world. Plus a black dragon puppet, the harvest is good. Thinking of this, Aizen looked up to the sky. The Lord of Elements absorbed the massive tides of elements, and the strength reached its limit and finally stagnated. He has transformed into a human form, like an uncle in his 30s. The eyes are of different colors, and the body is a simple blue robe. At this time, the Lord of Elements opened his eyes and frowned slightly. My strength is at the limit. Is this the limit of 5 stars? I can feel the star constraints. When he was 4 star, he had already reached the abyss level. Now 5 star, it is still an abyss, but the magic power is more profound. In a one-on-one situation, he can completely defeat the black dragon. Although he has never seen Jerf, he should not be his opponent. Of course, the opponent is immortal and may be able to win, but if you want to kill the opponent, it is hard to say. 5 star is just a small goal, the real goal is 6 star. The question is, how to achieve 6 star. Qinyang has some ideas, but it is not clear. Absorbing mysterious runes and elemental tides is definitely useless. Recalling the first 6 star phantom body, Aizen's situation, Aizen can reach 6 star because of the fusion of 2 collapsing jade. The 5 star ability of this phantom body is the elemental plane. Maybe, I will create the elemental plane and make it reach a certain level, and then fuse the plane to achieve 6 star. Of course, this is just speculation, but it's well worth a try. Anyway, the purpose here has been achieved, prepare to return. Thinking of this, Qinyang immediately said as Aizen, the mission is complete, let's go. As he said that, he stretched out his hand and tore the sky directly, tearing open a passage. Fire Dragon Ignir, Iron Dragon Metalicana, you come with me. After speaking, he took the first step and walked into the passage with the black dragon and the master of the elements. Seeing this, the 2 giant dragons looked at each other, descended immediately, and walked towards the space passage. At this moment, the voices of Natsu and Gajul came. Agunal. Natsu yelled. Natsu, go back and clean up the battlefield. Ignil said solemnly, you have grown up, it is time to get out of my protection. But don't waste your practice of dragon-slaying magic, and hope to meet again one day. Goodbye, Natsu. Saying that, he flapped his wings and entered the passage. Tai Long shook his head, glanced at Jijil, and said, how do I say, I joined the giant dragon army, so I left first. Your dragon transformation, I have already suppressed you to the extreme, don't worry about it in the short term. Yes, don't look so vicious, you will have no friends. It's long-winded. Jijil snorted and said, however, is this really good? You still have a lot of things to hide from me. You'll know, maybe soon, we'll be able to meet again. Tai Long did not have any nostalgia and disappeared directly into the passage. Unlike Natsu, Gurgil was an undercover agent, and still is. And with the disappearance of the giant dragon, the torn space quickly closed. Natsu and Gurgil looked at each other, and they were both speechless. Today, they have seen too much, and they have seen the real peak power in the world. For a while, they don't know what to say. I will save people, everyone should not die. Jijil said. Dream just absorbed their magic, and it can be recovered after a few days of cultivation. Ah, I'm here to help. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of town, Alfheim was struggling with one enemy and four. Although the Lord of Elements is gone, these four elemental beings are still following the director's orders. Damn, these elemental beings can't be killed at all. He smashed the storm element with one punch, and in the blink of an eye, the opponent was resurrected again. If it continues like this, it must be me who will die. Thinking like this, his brows suddenly moved, and he looked back towards the north. Oh, the reinforcements have finally arrived, unfortunately it's too late. Chapter 0658-Eclipse Gate. The first update Filu exploded. It has been unable to update. Until now I can enter the background, Japan. With the departure of the dream, the sky above Magnolia and the empty sea are also falling. The huge seawater fell to the ground, and then gradually turned into pure elements, floating in the air. Some of the more than 1,000 wizards trapped by Konghai are still in a coma, and some are always awake. Everyone's expressions are very heavy, especially the dream vice-chairman who finally appeared. It was a nightmare. He was as strong as a black dragon. What the hell is this terrifying dark guild doing? I absorbed the magic of many people before, and those who were absorbed fell into a coma. The people of the dark guild were also killed together. Still keeping the fresh mage, start clearing the battlefield. The first thing to do first, of course, is to subdue the people of the dark guild. The Devil's Heart, the 6 demon generals, etc., were all arrested. Makarov grabbed Hades with his own hands. I didn't expect that. Dream just used you as cannon fodder, and finally gave you up easily. What do you want to do? You have been absorbed by the other party, and now you can't use the magic. Makarov shook his head and said, I was absorbed once before, and this time they did nothing to me. It seems that the same person can only absorb it once. It's not right. It seems that it has been screened. Not all 793 can do it, and the same kind of magic cannot be absorbed. Of course, this is just his guess, if it is not known. Thinking of this, Makarov found a thick rope and tied Hades. After many years, I didn't expect you to fall into the darkness, and after that, you probably have to go to the magic prison. Huh. Hades sneered and let the other party grab him, but he didn't resist, and couldn't resist. He temporarily lost his magic, but he was not worried, because he saw the abyss and experienced it for himself. Maybe it won't be long before he can reach a new level. At that time, he could completely escape from prison. There was no prison in the world that could trap the great wizard of the abyss. Afterwards, several cadres in the Devil's Heart were also caught. On the side of the 6 demons general, the president of the 6 demons was dead, and the others were also caught. The Dark Guild, in a short period of time, was all controlled. It is worth mentioning that Absolute Zero Silver was also arrested. The cadre of the Gate of Hades was also absorbed by magic and fell into a coma. The only pity is that Ulu and Yulusha's mother and daughter disappeared, and seemed to have left earlier. Meanwhile, out of town, the woman named Sarah breathed a sigh of relief and murmured, Dream is gone, Yin was caught. However, this is better and easier to rescue. However, now is not a good time, there are too many people. Wait for them to be escorted. On the way to prison, do it again. She lurked, not in a hurry to act. Also, it seems that reinforcements from the Allied forces of light have arrived. Sally turned his eyes and looked towards the north. After a while, he completely hid the trail and disappeared. Karna Island. In front of the temple, a hole was torn open in the space, and several figures stepped out one after another. Behind him, 2 giant dragons flew to the ground and descended. It only took a few minutes for everyone to return from Magnolia and pass through the space passage. Huh. Suddenly, Agunye was stunned, and he saw at a glance, a little silver-haired girl at the gate of the temple. As expected, you took it away. The silver-haired girl was Mira, who had disappeared in the girls' dormitory before. At this time, a wisp of black smoke floated out, turning into the appearance of a shadow demon. It wasn't arresting, she came with her. Shadow Demon glanced at him, then said, Lord Eisen. Move the dragon out. Yes. The Shadow Demon nodded, waved his hand, and the black mist was lifted. After dissipating, a celestial dragon bound by chains appeared in front of everyone. Grandin. Tai Long was taken aback, and then he reacted, it seems that you resisted. And you are so weak, you only have one breath left. At this moment, Tianlong, because he has been away from the Dragon Slayer and has not been cured, the dragon soul is extremely weak, and only one breath is left. And hearing this, Tianlong opened his eyes and saw the Fire Dragon King and Tilong, you too. Her tone of voice was extremely surprised. The dragon souls of the Fire Dragon and the Iron Dragon were solid, not like the state of remnant souls at all. Here to Deathwing. Eisen instructed, you 4 giant dragons will be the cadres of the giant dragon army in the future. Tianlong Grandin, if you still want to resist, then don't blame me. After he finished speaking, he turned and left and walked into the temple. If Tianlong is still unwilling to join, there is no other way. He has to wash away his personality and memory like the black dragon and become a puppet dragon. That's our vice president. The Shadow Demon chuckled. Tianlong, you mother dragon, how are you feeling in my shadow world these days? As long as you are willing to join, then I can inform Deathwing. Lord, let him restore your dragon soul. Not to mention the outside world. Inside the temple, Eisen went straight back to the hall on the top floor. Today, the Lord of Elements has reached a 5-star level, and then the elemental plane is constructed, expanded and developed, and then merged with it. As for whether it can reach 6 stars, that can only be seen. In the short term, the demand for mysterious runes is not high, and there is no need to plan and collect them. Of course, if it is the origin of the world, it still has to be transcribed. In addition, the giant dragon army has already started. In this era, there are too few giant dragons. If you want to expand, you need to connect with China Unicom 400 years ago, the era of 10,000 dragons taking off. In the original work, there are people from the future who return to this era, and there are people from this era who opened a door, connected 400 young people, and even released several giant dragons. With this ready-made gate of time and space, Qinyang certainly wouldn't mind taking advantage of it. This door is called the Eclipse Door. However, according to the original plot development, this door will not open until 7 years later. How could Qinyang have the time to wait for 7 years? If he had that time, it would be easier to go back to the past by relying on the power of the space-time fish. This door is in the hands of the royal family of the Fury Kingdom, and to open it requires a huge amount of magic power, which is greater than the needs of the R system. Qinyang pondered for a moment, and roughly came up with a solution. In short, we must first control the Furian royal family, and then, absorb the huge magic power, let people open the gate of time and space, and release 10,000 dragons. As long as those dragons came to this era from 400 years ago, Qinyang has a way to clean them up, and the dragon army will be completely formed by then. Just thinking about it, Mira suddenly walked in. You haven't left yet. Qinyang raised his eyebrows and said speechlessly, are you planning to stay here? I heard that you are the vice president. Mira smiled bitterly and said, I beg you to help me and send me to that world. Send you? So what? If you lose your magic, that world is not stable. Not to mention bringing your sister back, it's all a question of whether you can survive or not. Qinyang thought for a while, then suddenly smiled, yes. I can restore your magic power, and I can also send you to that world. Hearing this, Mila's eyes widened and she said in surprise, really? Are you willing to help me? With conditions, there is no free lunch in the world. Qinyang, Vivi Isho, said, first, you have to join Dream, and second, you have to complete a task. Hearing this, Mila's face suddenly became bitter, and she said helplessly, I'm a wizard from fairy tale, I won't. Before she could finish speaking, Qinyang waved his hand and interrupted. Don't worry, you can go back to the guild. Maybe you fairy tale have disbanded. Disband. How can it be disbanded? Mira doesn't know why. Chinyong said with a half-smiling smile. It's not certain, you can go back and have a look. At that time, you will be a free mage, and you can join if you want. Chapter 0659_new ranking. 3 more continue to write. Mila was driven away by Chinyong and rushed back to Magnolia to let her see if Fairy Tale would disband. Whether it will be dissolved, about this, it is almost certain that it will be dissolved. Not because of the previous war, but because the biggest secret of Fairy Tale, Fairy Heart, or Lumen Starlight, is in his hands. Of course, this is only one reason. On the other hand, it is naturally the Magic Council in the Western continent. Makarov had to be disbanded, otherwise there would be bad results. In the end, Mira was driven away. She also felt that she should return to the guild once, and everyone would be worried after disappearing for so long. As soon as she left, Chinyong began to deal with the rest. First of all, regarding the Tianlong Grandin, let the Phantom Body Deathwing deal with it. First restore the opponent's dragon soul, and then let Tianlong, Fire Dragon, Iron Dragon, and Black Dragon become the cadres of the giant dragon army. Secondly, Uchiha Itachi was dispatched to the Kingdom of Fury Kingdom, the capital of flowers, Crocus. Go to control the king first, and then find a way to collect magic power and open the door of the eclipse. The third is to create the element plane, which is naturally done by the element master himself. Seems like I'm missing something. Chinyong sat on the throne and pondered for a while. Yulusha. Forget about the mother and daughter. Forget it, I saw them fleeing before, and they will come back in a few days. Shaking his head, Chinyong didn't pay much attention to it, and instead began to study the element plane in earnest. At the top of the temple, on the platform, the Lord of Elements sat cross-legged, palms pressed together. In the palm of the hand, the 4 elements are intertwined, the earth, water, fire and wind are fixed, creating a chaos. Starting from this chaos, a subtle element plane that is different from the material plane is slowly taking shape. At first, this plane was only the size of a fingernail, but after hours of expansion, it has grown to the size of a room. It's too slow. At this speed, it is impossible to form a plane without half a year. This is the creation of the plane and the creation of the world. Once completed, the Lord of Elements and the God of Creation are similar, and it only takes half a year to a year, which is not unpleasant. However, compared with the Shadow World and the Illusion World, it is indeed too slow. It seems that creating a stable elemental plane in one go is too energy intensive. I can create a water elemental plane first. Anyway, this is the sea, and the water element is very abundant. The 4 elements are created one by one, and then they are merged with each other. You can form a real elemental plane. Doing so will save at least several times the time. Thinking of this, the Lord of Elements immediately jumped, and after a few moves, he rushed into the ocean. Not to mention the situation on Karna Island. The Magnolia War is over, but the aftermath of the event has only just begun. The Allied forces of light were defeated and the Allied forces of darkness were annihilated. The only winner was Dream. Regarding the Dream, there is no way for the Council for the time being, but the Dark Guild of these captives will be judged. However, in the process of escorting, a mysterious woman suddenly appeared and robbed the cadres of the Gate of Hades, absolutely 0° silver. This made the Council furious, but no matter how angry they were, it couldn't change the fact that they were powerless. Speaker, the papers to impeach you have piled up. I think it's better for you to step down yourself. In the council, a man looked indifferently at the fat man sitting on the chair. The magic wizard power incident, due to your judgment, caused our big killer to go smoothly and lost its deterrence. Crisis is imminent. Quote. After a pause, he continued. 3 years ago, the Western continent tried to attack Ishgar, but they retreated because of the existence of the magic wizard power. Now, what to negotiate with them? The overall strength there, much stronger than this. You want to say, it's all my fault. The result of the vote at that time, but 8 votes in favor. Crawford was livid, shaking with anger. Don't be so wronged, the current council is no longer suitable to continue to lead the magic world. Man chuckled and said, especially this time, the foolish action of the Light Alliance has caused heavy losses, spread far and wide, and even caused the abyss, and the terrifying existence above the abyss. In any case, this session of your council has nothing to do with it. Way to keep sitting in this position. Quote. What the hell do you want? Crawford frowned deeply. Create a new council, the Holy 10 Council. A new council will be formed by the 10 strongest and most famous magisters in the mainland. Of course, because the current number 1 deity died in battle, the ranking of the Holy 10 will need to be redrawn. Man sighed. As for you, you can retire. Fairy tale. The guild was destroyed in the battle a few days ago, and Makarov doesn't seem to have any intention of building it. The members of the guild these days are all recovering from their injuries. On this day, in front of the ruins of the guild, Makarov convened all the members for an assembly. President, what's the matter? Let's rebuild the guild. The original guild is indeed a little small. Just to build a new one, everyone must contribute. By the way, the council has released a message. A group of members shouted, and then all were attracted by the new news. Ishgar Holy 10 ranking. Someone read the magic newspaper. Due to the unfortunate death of the first-ranked god Serena, the council decided to reselect 10 great magisters. Number 1, Dela Julius Hyperion. Number 2, Alfheim. Number 3, Warlord Sinkin. Number 4, Makarov. No 5, Joseph Zala. Number 6, Chikrane. Number 7, Gildas. Number 8, Jura Regis. Number 9, God Knight Spark. Number 10, Stuart. Kildeth, you have been selected as the Holy 10 by the council. Someone said in surprise. However, Kildeth, there is no problem. It's a big change. The Knight of God has heard of the name. Who is Stuart? Some people were also puzzled. Throughout the list, 3 new names appeared. Furthermore, the council seems to be setting up a new Holy 10 Council, which means everyone looked at each other, and then looked at the president. Makarov sighed, and only then did he speak. Listen to me first. For some reason, I made a decision. The crowd was attentive. This decision may be unacceptable to you for a while. But this is to protect everyone. You have to practice hard. The power of dreams, you have also seen it. It's just an elemental life, with the power of the abyss, and the vice president is even more mysterious and terrifying. Quote. After a pause, he raised his head, looked around at everyone, and said, I decided, fairy tale, today disband. Chapter 0660 _ at least the abyss, right? Disband. Hearing this suddenly, everyone in Fairy Tale was shocked. What are you talking about, President? Disband the guild? Why? Urza said in shock. Making this decision is also helpless. There are some things that you don't know yet. Makarov turned around and looked at the ruined guild, but this decision is the result of my careful consideration. After the guild is disbanded, don't waste your cultivation. Although the Balam Alliance has collapsed, the biggest dark dream still exists. There will be many inevitable battles, and only by becoming stronger can you protect yourselves. Quote. President, Natsu said excitedly. 4. Kildas held his shoulders and shook his head. The president must have his reasons for doing this, and this reason cannot be told to us for the time being. Kildas, do you think it doesn't matter if the guild is disbanded? Natsu held the opponent's hand and gritted his teeth. The guild is our home, don't you say anything and just disband. Natsu, everyone's bond with each other is not just because of the guild. Even without the guild, we are still friends. Gildas said solemnly. Now, listen to the president first. Having said that, he looked at Makarov and said, is it because of dreams? Yes, not all of them. They are only one aspect. Only the presidents of the past generations know about this matter. It is not suitable to tell you now. Makarov sighed deeply. Kildas, it's great that you can be selected as the Holy 10. After that, the little devils will need your care. President. Gildas was stunned. I'm going to a place, and if it's fast, I'll be back in a month or two. If all goes well, the guild will definitely be rebuilt again. After saying this, Makarov walked away. President. The crowd shouted, feeling depressed. A few days later, Mira returned to Magnolia. However, most of this town has been destroyed, and everything is being repaired. When she returned to the guild, Mira was dumbfounded. The place where the guild was originally located is now under construction, and many workers are busy. Seeing Mila's appearance, a man wearing a construction site helmet ate a pound and said in surprise, "Miss Mila. What happened to the guild?" Mira asked. Fairy tale. I heard that it was disbanded, and now a warehouse is being built in this place. Disband. Mila was stunned, and was told by Vice President Dream that she really wanted to disband. Why? Where is Urza? Where's Natsu? Gray. Urza, I don't know. Natsu's words seem to have gone to the council headquarters with Gildas. As for Gray, it seems to have gone somewhere. If you want to find members of the guild, you can go to the guild dormitory, where Q is still reserved. Pay. Thank you. Mira turned around immediately and walked towards the dormitory. In the dormitory, she met several girls such as Lebi, and Mira got the general situation through the other party's account. The guild was disbanded by the third-generation President Makarov personally. The reason is unknown, but he left some words. It seems that in a few months, he will come back and rebuild the guild at that time. Afterwards, Gildas believed that during this time, everyone could go to practice separately, and 3 months later, they would be reunited in Magnolia. It's roughly like this, Lebi said with a wry smile. What is the matter that the president must hide from us? Hearing this, Mira was silent. By the way, Mila, where have you been during this time? Mira opened her mouth and finally shook her head. Where is Elfman? He's looking for you. Where to find me? Myra's eyes widened. Shouldn't she go to the dreamy Karna Island? I don't know, I'm just investigating, I don't have any clues. I don't know where it went. Hearing this, Mira was a little anxious. Brother, don't really go to the fantasy stronghold, what will you do when you get caught? And the dream did not limit her freedom in life, she could come and go freely. No, I'm going to find him. Taking a deep breath, Mira turned to leave, and before leaving, she said, Miss Lebi, if Urza comes back, please help me tell her, I won't let the fairy tale disband. A day later. Karna Island, Temple. Qinyang sat on the throne and looked at the girl in front of him with a chuckle. Are you back? I'm back. Mila sighed. Why let the fairy tale disband? Hey, it's like I want Makarov to dissolve the guild. Qinyang couldn't help rolling his eyes. It's his own decision. From his point of view, it's really to protect you. Of course, he's not guarding us, but another group of people. What do you know? We know everything but won't tell you. Hearing this, Mira immediately made a decision. I will join you. No, please let me join Dream. She seemed to be conscious. Through this period of contact, she has a general understanding of the dream. This is a group of people with a very clear purpose. It seems that they are a dark guild. They don't seem to be like that. At least they are not the kind of wicked villains, but they are not good people. In order to achieve a certain purpose of their own, they can be enemies of the entire magic world. In this regard, Mila did not comment, but in order to protect the fairy tale and save her sister, she decided to feed the tiger with her body and cut the meat to feed the eagle. Seeing her heavy expression, Qinyang couldn't help but smile. Don't put on a generous face, we won't eat you. Shaking his head, Qinyang got up, walked to Mira, and said, Anyway, you are welcome to join me, Mirajan Strauss. Then, can you tell me, what do you know? Mira pursed her lips and added, Vice President. Well, first of all, you have to change your clothes. From today onwards, you will be a dream Kanban girl. Chinyang snapped his fingers, and out of nowhere came up with a car of clothes. Your main task is to be in charge of your dreamy image, so pay attention to how you dress. Of course, before that, I will restore your magic power. As our image ambassador, at least you must have the power to approach the abyss, or even the level of the abyss. Abyss. Mira was startled, her eyes widened, and she looked at the vice president in disbelief. Does he really know what the abyss is? That's the pinnacle of magic. In the past, she was only an S-rank magician, and she was far away from the Holy 10. Compared with the abyss, she was even worse. And your first task is to visit the Kingdom of Fury as a dream ambassador to meet His Majesty the King. At the same time, the Guild of the Ghosts. Joseph raised 100 million funds, and he called out the shadow demon's name. I saw misty black smoke, turning into a shadow of darkness. He is the money ready. One-handed delivery.